loved it.
What's poppin'? Show 101. We're breaking the 101s down this week. I'm your handsome host, fresh cut, Gene Walsack, the NFL genius. Not an NFL genius last week, 1 and 2. It's a little bit light. Got smashed on that Thursday night football game. But I'm your host, Gene Walsack, and to my left, I got the man, the myth, the legend, Uncle Shally.
I'll be identifying as Brownie the Elf for the rest of this show today.
Yeah. To my right, I got Kent State's own, Cleveland's own. The Browns got a W. College Cottrell.
Bill, you can't identify as Brownie the Elf. You're not cool enough to pull that off.
Brownie the Elf.
Bro,
Please.
that
Brownie
might
the
be
Elf.
my you got to be kidding me, because that is terrible. I cannot believe that they were letting Deshaun Watson no means no signs up in the stadiums. I don't know, bro. But we got a lot to get into this show. We got the UFC app. That UFC card that turned out to be a bust wasn't a bust because the weigh-in was nuts. Dana White's a genius promoter. He planned the whole thing. I'm kidding, but whatever. It works. The fight card ended up getting better, which was good. We got the NFL week 1. We have NCAA week 2. We got our Mount Rushmores coming back. LA 1 versus Buffalo. We got a little, we got our Pickems out, obviously, but we got a little Canelo Triple G action. We'll give a pick at the end. But we got a ton to get into this week. So where I want to start is the UFC recap. I want to talk about that melee that happened behind the scenes, no press conference. Weight cuts were not made. Initial thoughts, Cottrell, start us off this week. What were your thoughts on the weight cut and the press conference, the behind the scenes stuff before we get into the fights?
I mean, my original thoughts on the weight cut was, I thought it was extremely unprofessional for Khamzat to come in and not be able to make 170. We've seen him make 170 in the past, and it's a guy who I think all three of us, Gene, of course, you've been more high on Khamzat than me and Bill have, but this is a guy who we all thought is right in contention for that welterweight belt. And so when you go into a fight like this, when you're essentially, one shot away from a shot at the belt, you have to make that weight. Kamaru Usman just lost. I'd assume that we all think that, we talked about a couple weeks ago, assume that he gets a rematch. But at this point, Khamzat's next up right behind Kamaru. And for him to come in, not just overweight, but he was, 6.5 pounds overweight. Like that's just completely, uncalled for. And, he said that it was a medical thing, but I mean, if you read between the lines there, that basically what it was is that he had a dirty cut, and he came into the week in Vegas, and he had too much weight to lose, and he couldn't do it. So, I was very surprised by that. He seems like a true professional before this. I know he has all the I want to kill and all that stuff, like the fun stuff, but he seemed like he was about his business. But now it seems like, he's moving. Everything that I've heard, it sounds like he's moving up to 185 now. So we will see.
I mean, I think you're right about the dirty cut. I think it definitely was a dirty cut. I think he was trying to cut everything last second, and he was dehydrating himself, which the UFC, I don't know if you know this, but like about 2.5 years ago, the UFC really start putting a shun on dirty cuts. They didn't want to do, they wanted fighters to cut. They used to have them weigh in like a week prior, kind of see if they were on they were on pace to make weight. You've seen it most recently in Jake Paul's fight, where it looked like Hasim Rahman Jr. was going to do a dirty cut, so they end up calling the fight off. So I think that's exactly what Khamzat was doing. I think he's better at 185 anyway. I think the way he's structured, the way his build is, the way his body is, I think making 170 is going to be difficult his entire career. Every time he makes 170, he looks huge. He's way bigger than everybody in the ring. Where at 185, he looks like a normal 185er. And I think that the divisions, 170, 185, are very similar. You got, a reigning champion that doesn't have many losses. I know Usman's not the champion anymore, but comparing Usman to Stylebender is not a crazy it's not a crazy comparison. So I think that him fighting at 185, it will, as you see, will be no problem. But we'll talk about the fights in a minute. More of the melee though, like before fight. Bill, you think it was staged? Do you think any of that was planned? Do you think that the behind the scenes stuff, they knew they weren't going to make the weight and they were trying to like sell another fight with Kevin Holland? Like, what are your thoughts?
I mean, so that's the conspiracy theory, so we're all hearing that, to your point, they monitor fighters' weights when they get to town. You can't drop a certain amount over a certain amount of time, whatever the percentage is. So of course there's people out there on the internet saying, like you said, that Dana knew early enough that he wasn't going to make weight, that he wasn't going to get there, that, his genius promoter mind came up with this, make the melee, cancel the press conference, so I don't have to answer a bunch of questions about it and why Khamzat didn't make weight, so forth and so on, and then rebook the entire card, and everybody was fine with it. Probably paid everybody a little bit more money underneath the table, and they put the show on. Do I necessarily believe that? I don't know, but knowing Dana White, I mean, it wouldn't shock me one bit. I mean, if it comes out, a year from now that's what he did. That's what Dana does. I mean, let's not forget where UFC used to be before Dana got involved and where it is now. He's a great promoter. That's what he does. I think it's a little crazy if it is true to kind of, I don't want to say dupe the fans, but that's a lot of WWE storytelling right there. If that's really what he did. So the fans benefited, like you said, they ended up getting a better card out of everything. But I think the whole beginning of the weekend was just chaos. And if he can't make 170 anymore, it's kind of crazy to put all that work in and climb the ranks. And, we debated about it before, if he was going to be the next one up or if Kamaru was going to get his title shot. I would have to say with him missing weight, the nod would probably go to Kamaru now. But, yeah, I mean, I everything I've read, I agree with Cottrell. I think he's going to 185. So, and I don't, again, I think it's an easier – it's definitely going to be an easier cut. It's going to be easier for him to get in shape at 185. Izzy, I disagree a little bit, though. I think Izzy's a nightmare matchup for him. But I would like his chances against Usman better than I would Izzy.
What's up? I wanted to say what's up to all the people in the chat. Key Williams, Jordan G. Lewis, Christopher Morrow, Freddie Henderson, Vic 3. What up, y'all? I appreciate y'all tuning in. Appreciate y'all in the comments. Comment back all night. Let us know your thoughts on Khamzat weight cut. But let's talk about the fights now, because I don't. By the way, Bill, before we continue, I do want to say I don't think that Izzy a Stylebender is a nightmare fight for him. I think his wrestling would be fine against Stylebender, like it would be versus Kamaru Usman. If you see the maniac in that man, and like we'll talk about the fights now, and I understand Kevin Holland wasn't prepared to fight a wrestler, but like what he does to people is embarrassing. And I think the one thing that he was a little bit worried about in his fight versus, the three-round fight, I forget the name.
Gilbert Burns.
Yeah, Gilbert was his jiu-jitsu. I think he was worried about getting tapped on the getting choked out on the shoot. But I don't think that he has anything to worry about getting choked out on the shoot versus someone like Stylebender or versus Kamaru Usman. I don't think that that's a concern. I think your biggest concern in that division would have been, like a Damian Maia type fighter. I know he's not fighting, but that style fighter that would be able to catch you during that wrestling, so you have to stand with them. I think what makes him so good is the fact that he can wrestle and stand. He stood with one of the best strikers in the division in Gilbert Burns for 3 rounds. He absolutely dominated wrestling wise this last fight. I think he can do it all from all different angles, and I think he's the next great UFC champ. Not just a UFC champion, great UFC champ.
I get it. I mean, but I don't think anybody would put Gilbert Burns anywhere near in the striking category that Izzy is. We've seen Izzy wrestle great wrestlers before. It probably leads to a boring fight, which is what I would be a little bit worried about, because Izzy will play his counter-striking game and kind of just lull him to sleep and make him come in. But I think Izzy would I think he has a better shot of beating Usman than he does Izzy, because I think he's the matchup of what they both want to do is exactly the same. He's not going to outstrike Izzy in that fight. And that's probably what, if he can't get him to the ground, then that's what he's going to have to do to win. And I would really, really like Izzy's chances there.
I know we talked about Khamzat's tank before when we talked about the Gilbert Burns fight and, fully expect him to be prepared for a 5-round fight. I'd be curious to see, Izzy's a guy who will push the pace on you 4 or 5 rounds. So I'd be curious to see how Khamzat responded in that manner, especially being at 185. But I think the thing that's kind of more important here is that if Khamzat's going up to 185 and he just missed weight, he's got to have a fight before Izzy. And I would absolutely love to see him fight Robert Whittaker.
Yep.
Give me him and Whittaker, right at the end of the year. You put that on that December card. That's perfect. Then you see what he's really made of. So,
I think Paulo Costa was begging for that fight. But yeah, I would love to see him and Whittaker. I think him and Whittaker would be great. I think that's a great fight. I just really, hey, call me nuts. Call me whatever you want to call me. I'm very high on him. I don't think he loses. I don't think he loses this year. I don't think he loses next year. I don't think he loses in 2023, 2024. I think the guy is going to be the next great UFC champion, not just next champion. I just think he has it all. He's got the stand-up game to strike one of the best strikers at 170. He's got the wrestling game, and he can submit you. He can knock you out. And for anybody worried about his tank, I question what you watched when he fought Gilbert Burns. I understand that was a 3-round fight, but they were standing and banging for 15 minutes. It wasn't like it was like they were trying to conserve energy. They were trying to conserve the tank. They were just standing and banging. I think that any fighter, anybody that is in a situation like that, you're going to run into a little bit of wind. I think he'll be fine in 5-round fights versus counter strikers. Or I think he'll be fine in a 5-round fight versus somebody that likes to stick and move like Izzy. With that being said, I just feel like that I don't feel like Izzy or Kamaru beats him. I think that he beats both of them. And I don't listen. The hype train's real. You watch what he did, and the Leech just fought at 180, right? And I think he got the biggest disrespect on the entire card. He ended up training for a 170 fight. He had to fight a 180 fight, and he won the fight. He won the fight. There's no doubt in my mind he won the fight. And he got robbed on the decision at the catchweight at 180. But with that being said, I think that you watch what Khamzat did to him, destroyed him. I think that you're going to continuously see this guy get better and better each fight. This was the 3rd fight he's had where he hasn't absorbed 1 strike in the entire fight. That's absurd. That's absurd. It doesn't happen. But your thoughts on the fight? Your thoughts on the card?
That specific fight, looking back on it, obviously Khamzat was dominant. I didn't realize watching it in real time that how he got the first takedown was Kevin Holland stuck his hand out, thinking that they were going to touch gloves. And then he faked like he was going to do it and then shot. I didn't see it the first time. Not that it matters at all, but that kind of rubbed me the wrong way seeing the replay of it. But, it is what it is. You got to be prepared at all times when you're in the cage. But, he was as dominant as I was expecting him to be in that kind of fight. Against Kevin Holland, I knew when they switched that matchup, I knew that fight was going to be as dominant as it was. Yes, it did make the other cards better. I wanted to see Nate against Khamzat just because of that. Well, one, I knew Nate wasn't going to be afraid to just be in front of him and go blow for blow with him. And 2, while I knew Khamzat would dominate on the ground, I knew like I said last week, there was that 2% chance that Nate would catch him, like how Nate caught Tony in the 4th round. So ultimately, it did make the card better. The Nate and Tony fight was as entertaining as it could be for those 2 guys, I guess. I have no real quarrels with the card besides Leach taking that L that he didn't deserve.
The Leach decision is brutal. I think Gene didn't even hammer it home enough how bad it was. That's terrible for him. It really is. Like you said, to take a fight last minute, get switched, go to a catch weight, and then still go through all that. And I haven't seen what Dana said about the decision yet, but it was brutal. In regards to Nick and Tony, I guess that was a better fight than it would have been if it was Khamzat and Nick. But I think that's the fight we all wanted to see. Nate, sorry, with with all the animosity and the shit talking that was going to go on and everything else. I mean, it was, everybody kind of wanted to show up to watch the beating, but sucks. I mean, it sucks. I mean, that's it for both of them. I don't think you ever see Nate again. And I think it's time for Tony to go. The dude's a legend. Always going to be remembered in a great light with being a warrior, man. Being like Tony Ferguson never had a boring fight. Dude left it in the cage all the time, but I mean, his skills and everything have just diminished so much over the last 2-3 years, and to lose a Nate like that, I think is, I think it's time to hang him up. Maybe Dana gives him a sucker to, that is somebody he knows he can beat to go out on a winning note, and that's it. But if not, I think I think Tony can ride into the sunset with his head held high. And then I agree with Canelo as well with the Khamzat Holland fight. I mean, when I saw that come out, I'm like, that's it was going to be an easy W. Derek Holland's a good athlete, and he's fine and everything. He's not on Khamzat's level. He's just not. I didn't see the handshake thing either, so that's interesting. I'm going to go back and rewatch that.
So
that's a little.
It almost looks like I don't know if it's a hand. It's his hand going up like for a hand tap or a wrist grab, but it more looks like he's looking for like a high five or a hand tap. They touched gloves before the fight. They pounded fists before the fight. And the first thing Kevin Holland did was reach up, put his hand almost like he was going to tap gloves above his head. Khamzat went up to push the hand or tap the hand or fake like he was going to take the hand, and then went shot at the leg. The fight had already started. Then I have no issue with that. You're in a UFC fight. You have to be prepared. I don't think it would. First of all, if this is a guy that you're talking shit in the back of the press conference, you want to fight, and he's not a real gangster, and this and that, and I'm going to show you what I do. And the first thing you want to do is high five. I get you're trying to sell a fight, but let's not pretend that these guys are friends. Like these guys are like training partners that they want to hang out together.
They sure seemed buddy after the fight was over, though. Like, hey, we did a good job selling.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess
before, so.
I guess I don't know. I don't look at that as any down to Khamzat. Even if it was like I'm looking to shake hands, it wasn't like a handshake thing. It was like a touch gloves on top over their head.
It's just one of those. It's one of those unwritten rules things, You tap gloves, and then you get after it. That's all. I'm cool with it though. You gotta be prepared in the cage.
I seen it right away though. I seen it right away. As soon as it happened, I seen it. I didn't think anything of it. I seen a couple people talking about it online. I think Khamzat's going to be a great villain for the UFC. I really do.
Absolutely.
I just think that people are going to like hope to see him lose. What I thought was real interesting, when we were talking about Nate and Tony Ferguson's corner. Did you guys hear them begging him to shoot at Nate Diaz? And the moment he shot, he got tapped. Like, that is terrible, man. Like, I thought that was embarrassing on their end. When I think Nate and Tony, I don't think that Tony should be shooting at Nate in any aspect of the fight. Like, I think that Tony's best chance of winning that fight would have been on the feet. And to beg him for 2 rounds to shoot, and then the first time he gets shot. And even Nate said it. Nate said, I trained for a month on wrestling. I trained for a month to defend wrestling because I was supposed to fight Khamzat. I didn't train striking at all. Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree. I mean, Tony's no slouch on the ground by any means. I think it's one of those things, and everybody thinks of Nate, and they think of him as a striker and that kind of guy that just you got to kill him to get him out of there. But he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. We've talked about it numerous times before. I mean, that's what his base is. His base is jiu-jitsu before striking. He's very, very good on the ground. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what Tony's corner was thinking. I think he was doing fine in the fight. I don't know if he was necessarily winning, but it was, to your point, it was a real quick ending that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was 2-1 no matter how you look at it.
Yeah.
It was 2-1. It was probably 2-1 Nate. It could have been 2-1 Tony. I doubt it. I had a 2-1 Nate. But with that being said, I think that I'm going to play a quick game before we move on. Can we play a quick game of Khamzat or? And I think that this will be really important to see what your picks will be for if these fights end up happening. It's only going to be 4 who you'd pick in the fight, Khamzat or. Because I'm going to go Khamzat on all 4 of them, but I want to hear what your thoughts are. And you don't have to explain it. Just tell me who you think wins, okay?
Got it.
All right, so Khamzat or Colby Covington?
You know I'm rolling with Colby.
Going Colby.
I think he destroys Colby. I think that's the easiest of the 4 fights I'm going to. Khamzat or Kamaru Usman?
Kamaru.
Going Usman as well.
Okay. Khamzat or Forrest Whitaker? Not Forrest Whitaker, Robert Whitaker.
I'll take Khamzat on that one. Let me get the odds on that real quick.
Robert Whitaker, sorry.
Forrest Whitaker's got one goddamn eye. He wanted to get cleared to fight.
That was a goof. Khamzat or Robert Whitaker?
I'll take Khamzat over Forrest and Robert at the same time.
Dante set the odds versus Forrest Whitaker. It's minus 2 million, 10 million.
I'll bet it all.
I'm taking Khamzat over Forrest and Robert.
Agreed.
Okay, and then Khamzat versus Stylebender.
Taking Izzy.
I'm also taking Izzy.
So you guys have him 1-3 in those 4 fights, and I have him 4-0. I guess we'll find out in his next few fights.
I will say this: the only one that I feel super confident that I like, if I was betting money, I would feel very comfortable putting my money down would be Izzy. I definitely think there's ways and pathways for him to beat Kamaru, and I think he could beat Colby too. I think both those fights are wars, but I think they're both better than anybody he's fought so far.
I think the UFC should sign Khamzat versus Colby on the undercard of Kamaru Leon 2, and then have the winners face each other. That to me would be the most ideal situation.
The problem is it seems like because I saw Khamzat's coach got interviewed, and he was the one who originally said the whole thing about 185. So I'm almost wondering, does his team think that 170 is just not feasible anymore? Like, has Khamzat gotten too big? Like, he's put on too much like muscle weight that he just can't get back to 170 and be the dominant fighter that he is.
See, the problem, I agree with you, because if he does win the belt, then you have to continue to cut until you lose, and that's where it becomes an issue for him. And we've talked about it before, man. These big guys that cut down to these crazy weights, the older you get, the stronger you get, and the cut gets harder and harder every single time. Your body just doesn't want to do it. No matter what great kind of shape you're in, how much you run, like Gene said earlier, he was dehydrating himself, and you're still not going to get there. There's only so much you could squeeze out of a body sometimes. It's just biology. It's just the way it is. I don't know if it's sustainable for him if we're saying he beats, the winner of Kamaru and Leon. At that point, it puts him at the top of 170. I would say Colby's probably the next one then if it worked out that way. But he's got to sustain that and stay there somehow. And I don't think they're confident at all that he can do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if he goes to 185, that's a huge name to go up to 185, which we all agree anyway is lacking in big fights for Izzy. So
I completely agree with you, Bill. I think 185 is better for his overall body. This is the one rumor I 100% agree with. And Khamzat said it after the fight. And I'm 100%. I think this happened. I think he was at 174, and I think he started cramping, and then they made him hydrate. So when he weighed in at 178, he'd already hydrated. He had said I was much lower, and the doctor said I needed to hydrate, which is why I came in 8 pounds overweight. I think I believe that. I don't think he makes 170, but I don't think he would have been ridiculously over at 178. Because he looked, me and Control both seen it when we watched the weigh-in. He looked like he was not spent at all. And I think what happened was, I think he was trying to make the dirty cut, and he was at like maybe 173 or 174, and his body started cramping up on him. And the doctor's like, yeah, you should probably drink water. And then they said it was required and it was a medical condition, which is disputed one way or the other. But that's what I truly believe. I think 185.
His coach actually came out and said it actually wasn't the doctor that told Khamzat to hydrate. The doctor came in, gave the advice, but his coach is the one who said, yeah, we're not doing this cut anymore because we think this could potentially harm you, down the road. So we're done. I think he said it was at that point they stopped it. He was at 176. So they were like, yeah, that's it. We're not cutting anything else.
If you're anywhere from 174 to 176, and like Gene said, and you're cramping and you can't do anything without seizing up like that, you're not getting to 170. You're just not getting there. You're especially not getting there in 10 hours. So yeah, I mean, at that point, there's no point in doing it. It's just all you're doing is hurting your body. It's physically impossible to get there at that point.
I completely agree.
I'm curious to see what Khamzat, if it'll ever come out, what he walks around at, because I know they just did
2 bills
Pereira.
Easy. He's a 195 guy. Probably agree. Yeah,
200 easy.
Alex Pereira was walking around at 223, so I'm like, and he makes 185. So I'm like, Khamzat's obviously he doesn't have the biggest frame as Alex does, but Khamzat's a big guy. So I'm curious.
Oh, by the way, I didn't mention that one. I think Khamzat absolutely runs through Alex Pereira if they ever fought.
Me too. I don't trust Alex's wrestling. I haven't seen enough to trust it yet. So
not at all.
All right, we got to move on. Good talk UFC, but we got college football to go. We got a lot more on the agenda. So I want to recap last week, college football. I want to recap what happened week 2, and I think that I think there's a couple games that really stood out. But the game that stood out to me the most was, and Cottrell, I got to give you credit. I have to give you credit. You said something last week, and it literally looked like that. I think Sark held things back from week 1 to use week 2. And I think it's so disappointing that Quinn Ewers ended up getting hurt and leaving that game, because I don't know if Texas loses that game if Quinn Ewers plays the whole game. He looked different. He looked much better. He had pinpoint accuracy. He has like it's like a 20-yard out, like deep out route he threw on the money, like pinpoint precision accuracy. He looked great. He looked exactly the way I thought Quinn Ewers would look coming into the season. And I think it's sad he got hurt. I don't think the hit was that dirty. I don't think that's a dirty hit. I get that it has to be called a penalty because he fell on him, but man, he looked good, and he was dicing up the Bama defense. I don't know, man. Texas Bama was, to me, the biggest shocker. After what I watched from Texas week 1, this kid being, didn't he start a game at Ohio State, or he finished a couple games at Ohio State?
He finished like 2 games at Ohio State. Didn't throw a pass though.
But for his second start in college football, he looked incredible. Your thoughts?
I think Alabama should be, thanking their lucky stars they got out of Austin with a W. It took an absolutely incredible play from Bryce Young at the end of that game to get them in field goal range. And I'll go one better for you, Gene. I think if he plays the whole game, I think they absolutely win the game, and they might win the game by a touchdown. They didn't really have an answer for him. If anybody is extremely, happy and whatever word you want to use, that they're undefeated and still the number 2 team in the country, it's got to be Alabama. Because I'll tell you, for 75% of that game, if not more, Texas outplayed them.
Absolutely.
Cottrell, you said it perfectly with Sarkisian, like holding stuff back, like not showing a lot, because like he obviously came from with Nick Saban and having that. I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that, I mean, I knew, one, it was the timing. I knew Xavier Worthy, super talented kid. It was his second game with Quinn at quarterback. They got to get their timing down, because I think both of those guys, they were too talented not to work together. The other thing was that even after Quinn got hurt, I'm not going to say Hudson Card didn't miss a beat, because he definitely did, but he was performing well until he got, hampered by whatever injury he had going on. So I think Alabama was definitely in a situation where, all the stars had to align for them to win that game. I think Dante said it best on East Coast Gridiron the other night. I feel bad for every team that Bama has to face for the next 3 weeks, because they are going to absolutely run through each and every one of those teams, and it's just not going to be fair. So Bama escaped here, but I guarantee you we don't see Bama look this bad again. 15 penalties, that's just very un-Nick Saban-like, and I'm sure they're going to get that corrected very, very fast.
I wouldn't have wanted to been at practice Monday. Promise you that. That was not a pleasant practice. In Tuscaloosa on Monday.
Foreshadowing. That might be one of my picks this week. And I after watching the East Coast Gridiron last night, it kind of like solidified my thought process. I'll tell you what. One thing though, I seen a real chink in the armor. I think that Alabama is lacking what they've had for the last 4 years at the receiver position.
Yep.
I think Bryce has got it. I just don't think they don't have Waddle and Smith. They just don't have Judy and Ruggs. They don't have that. They don't have Jamison Williams and John Mechie. They don't have that. I think that's their biggest problem they're going to run into, especially facing a team like Georgia.
Yeah, they have no elite speed on the outside right now. I think they have kids there that are going to be that in a couple of years. They're just all young right now. They don't, and they were very fortunate the last couple of years, like you said, to have, when they had, upperclassmen, they still had 2 studs right underneath them that the next year they would just step up. And last year you lost Jamison Williams, you lost Menchie. Everybody that for the most part that was coming in was a freshman or a redshirt freshman that didn't play a lot. They don't have those 2 studs. They don't have the stopgap that they've had the last couple of years with all those teams. Like you said, went from Judy and Ruggs but you still had all the other kids behind it, and then they rotated out like Waddle and Devontae, and then last year you had Jamison Williams and Menchie still. They don't have that this year, and it was. I'll tell you, like you said, I don't even want to call it a chink in the armor. I think it's a little bit. I think it's a little bit more severe than that. I think it was exposed big time. I don't think it matters enough to come to fruition until probably Georgia at the end, but you never know. They got to be able to score points because I'll double down on it. The defense didn't look great either on Saturday. I think they were bailed out big time by Ewers getting hurt. Secondary is a little vulnerable as well. Texas A&M's probably not going to be able to expose that enough to maybe get the W in Alabama. Georgia will though. So it's I think Alabama definitely took, I don't want to say took a step backwards, but I think you saw a little bit better understanding of what they are now 2 weeks into the season. And of course, everybody's going to get better. Saban will figure something out because he is a great coach, and they'll get better down the stretch. But I think 2 weeks into the season, I think you put them all in a neutral field. I think Georgia is definitely. I think Georgia has to be number one, and if Ohio State can, get back and get healthy and get their shit together, I would say they're probably favored on a neutral field right now.
Speaking of Ohio State, speaking of giving trouble, how about Notre Dame losing to Marshall? We are beating Notre Dame. I think that win is hurtful to Ohio State. So Ohio State now needs to run the table because they don't have that top 10 win that they thought they would have with Notre Dame. And I think it makes them have to run the table. Like, I don't think that a non-conference champion Ohio State could make the college football playoff now, using that as their I don't know, just my personal opinion. But
I agree.
It depends on how everything shakes out. I mean, it wasn't.
I love that photo.
I know. It wasn't. It wasn't necessarily a good thing for Ohio State. I mean, it's still going to be a quality win. It's still going to be a tier 1 win, but it's not going to carry the weight that I think we all thought it was going to. And I think Notre Dame, realistically, I mean, they're the freshman they were started. He's now hurt, and they're going back to the kid that he beat out, and he didn't look much better when he came in. I think they're realistically looking probably 4 or 5 losses dead in the face right now, if not more. They're not going to beat USC. I'm not sure about the rest of they got Clemson. I don't think they're going to beat Clemson. That's 4 right there. It's going to be a rough first year for Freeman in South Bend.
Bigger loss this week. Do you think A&M or Notre Dame?
Notre Dame, 100%.
Notre Dame's done. Texas A&M is on that list of teams with Baylor and Florida and all them that are on life support.
You could beat Bama or beat a Georgia and be back on this.
If A&M stays undefeated in the SEC and beats Alabama, they go to the championship game, they got a shot. Florida the same way. If Florida could beat Georgia in a couple weeks and make it, they all have avenues there. Baylor can, if Baylor can beat Oklahoma or Texas and at least get to the championship game in the Big 12. Utah's the same way. Utah's going to have to go through USC. They're on life support. Like it looks grim, but there's avenues there. Notre Dame's done. They have no shot at making the college football playoff, 0. And like I said, I think a success for them would be to finish over 500, quite honestly. They're going to lose to Clemson. They're going to lose to USC. I'll tell you what, man. I mean,
I just mean it in like, is it worse to lose at home to Appalachian State or Marshall? I think that Appalachian State, I will say this, though. Appalachian State's played 2 games this year, and both of them have been just, I mean, they could, what's funny? Like, I think about this, right? And maybe I'm just nuts. Appalachian State wins last week and then beats Texas A&M, and they run the table. Like, how high do they get ranked? Do you know what I mean? Because, like, Appalachian State's going to get in their conference schedule and run through everybody.
Probably like 8. They probably get to, like, the top bowl or something. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, they probably absurd. If they can run the table, they make a New Year's 6-day bowl for sure.
Which would be insane for an Appalachian State. Am I right?
It'd be insane. I mean, it's great for the program, though. That is the part. Like, that is one of the things about college football that makes it special. Like that stuff can happen. I know Dante's a big Jimbo guy, but I mean, that's a bad L.
Bill, I'm sure you're happy about it because I know the saying goes, "Misery loves company." So
facts.
App State upset you guys a long time. You're like, hey, we're not the only ones anymore. Remember A&M in 22?
I love that he brought that up to just rub
recency bias. Recency bias. I'll take it. People bring up A&M before they bring up Michigan now. But listen. I mean, even back then, dude, I'm like, they were 1AA back then before they changed the name of it. But they hadn't lost a game in 2 years when they beat us. Still no excuse. But it's not like this program came out of nowhere. Like it's a very, very good football program. It really is.
I'm sorry, we're off on a tangent right now, so I gotta just throw it out there. James Madison just switched from AA. They moved up to single A, and I believe they play Marshall this year. They got that's a team to watch out for because they got some teams on their schedule that if they beat, they could be in a bowl game in their first year in single A. And I don't know why that just made me think about it. But
I'll tell you right now, Marshall's a team you got to watch out for. If they don't lose, I mean, where do they end up?
James Madison and Marshall. Wire to wires getting deep in college football this week. What game are you guys most looking forward to this week coming up?
That's a good question.
I mean,
you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Penn State Auburn. That was probably my second one. I'm interested in that because go ahead.
Because last year when Auburn went to Penn State and Penn State beat them, now Penn State's got to return the favor and go to Auburn. I think it'll be a good matchup. I think the spread's indicative of everything you want to see. I think Sean Clifford will struggle, and I think that Penn State will probably lose the game. But I don't know. If I'm being honest, I don't want to lie to you. I'm going to tell you like my honest opinion.
I get it. Yeah, I mean they're minus 3.5 on the road. They're ranked. They slipped in the bottom end of the top 25 this week. It is. They're showing signs of, I don't know if you want to say turning the corner or kind of figuring it out. They kind of established a run game last week. Clifford looked okay. This is going to be a big step up. Ohio. I get it. Ohio's not a bad team though.
Yes, they are. Compared to Penn State.
I get it, dude. I'm talking about overall. I mean, they weren't playing one of these teams that, Ohio's a decent MAC school. I mean, I've seen them, previewed to be anywhere from 1 to 2 in the MAC in their division this year. I'm just saying they're not terrible. They're not one of these teams, that they're going to be favored to lose by 40 or favored to win by 45. But But again, I'm curious to see the jump up and see what they look like.
Brandon's awesome. He said, Ohio, they ain't no James Madison.
Idiot.
I'm just happy Penn State beat a team from Ohio this week. Like, I'm just happy that happened because I haven't seen Penn State beat a team with the name Ohio for a while. So
it's only been a couple years.
I dread Ohio State games right now. They're just such a better program than us right now, and it drives me nuts.
Listen, Penn State's in a weird spot because they've attached themselves to Clifford. I don't think they're in a horrible spot going to Auburn because Auburn's kind of in the middle of a rebuild, to be quite honest.
It's fair.
I agree.
So it's a good if they can get the W, they come home 3-0 going into Big Ten play. It'd be a good W to have on the resume at the end of the year. Again, I don't think they're in Ohio State or Michigan's level right now, but maybe they sneak out Michigan State. I don't know. But I'll say what I said before. I would have played the kid all year this year. I really would have.
Agreed.
Played and just let him get settled, let him get in. That running back's a freshman. They let them all come back next year, all gelled and getting used to playing each other. They have a good class coming in this year, and then see what you have next year. I think it was stupid to wait till next year to really, name him the starter and go through the growing pains that he's probably going to go through a little bit.
I was really looking forward to a 6-year at Clifford. That's what I was looking forward to.
The problem is that
Clifford's been on Penn State longer than most quarterbacks been in the NFL. I'm done.
You knew Penn State had to do right by Sean Clifford. Like if
why? No, they don't. No, they don't. The dude said every opportunity in the world at that school.
I'm not saying he deserves it, but I'm saying they would have had to do right by him in the sense of if you knew Aller was going to come in and be the starter, you got to let Clifford know so that he can hit the portal and not waste a 6 year of eligibility. The guy's been in your program for 5 years. I'm just saying that relationship between Clifford and Franklin.
I would have done the same thing. You just said his 6th year of eligibility.
Frank, if Clifford's my quarterback, he's gone. Bro. I told you guys before the season, over the summer, Drew Riley was going to come in and be special. So
believe you literally just
Sean Clifford's been at Penn State longer than Trevor Lawrence was at Clemson and in the NFL.
You just died on the Sean Clifford hill. Like that's crazy.
You know how much I don't like Clifford. I mean, if I can, I want to see him as much as I can. Bring him back for a 7th year.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
what game are you looking forward to? Come on, let's stop beating up Penn State.
I was either going to pick that. I mean, the other game that's intriguing is Miami going to Texas A&M. That's mine. See what Van Dyke does. A&M coming off a loss now, and they didn't look much better last week than they did, week 1 either. They're struggling to move the football. Jimbo Fisher cannot develop a quarterback at that school. They have no consistent passing game. They have a good defense. But again, I mean, let's not act like App State is some defensive juggernaut. And to score 2 touchdowns at home, that's alerting. That's not a good sign. I think Miami is a very good shot of going in there to win. And then if he does, with all the momentum Texas A&M have coming into this year, 2 losses early, you still got to go to Alabama. That season could turn into a nightmare for Jimbo down in College Station real quick.
So Kyle Edwards has the comment tonight so far. He said, "Who stays in college longer, Clifford or Tommy Boy?"
Got to add Van Wilder in there too. He was in there for 6 years.
Cottrell, your game. I'm hoping it's the one game that I almost picked because I really want to talk about it for a minute at least.
No, mine's kind of off the wall a little bit. Not off the wall, but Michigan State at Washington. I think that's going to be a sneaky, really good football game. Michael Penix has shown, transfer from Indiana. He's really shown that he's back to what we saw 2 years ago. Last year was a down year for him at Indiana, and him in the Washington system it's been really, really working out for him. They're 3.5 favorites against number 11 Michigan State, and I think that's a game that's going to get real tricky for those Spartans. So
Penix tore his ACL, right? 2 years ago, the end of the season. Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'm not looking forward to this game, but because I maybe I'm nuts, guys. Help me out understand. I've watched BYU play great football 2 straight weeks, and Oregon get absolutely I know it's Georgia. I get it. But Georgia beat beat Oregon worse than Georgia beat Sam whatever university. Whatever, I don't care. But they beat Oregon way worse than them, right?
Yes.
And Oregon is a 3-point game versus them and BYU. BYU has looked great this year. They looked great so far. They look like they got a good system, a good quarterback, a great offense. What's the name of the wide receiver? All-world wide receiver. It's going to be a first or second round draft pick.
I know what you're talking about.
Why am I forgetting the name?
I'm
losing my mind. But why is that a 3-point game? Do you think Oregon is close in that game? Do you think it's a close game?
Oregon's not an easy place to play. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with the first part too. It was Georgia. It was a glorified home game for Georgia. I mean, it was just the freaking Mercedes-Benz Dome. So I mean, it's a home game for them. And on top of that, I mean, Oregon didn't play well. They looked a lot better last year. They put up 70. I think Georgia was also up for that game with it being a primetime, nationally televised game. They wanted to come out and make a statement. They know they're not losing to Sam Houston or whoever the hell else they played last week. That's a go out, get your reps in, don't get hurt, make some plays, get off the field by halftime, so forth and so on. Austin Stadium, dude, not an easy place to go play. That place will be rocking. And they notoriously play well there. I won't be at all surprised if BYU goes in there and wins, though. I'm not super confident about Oregon on either side of the ball, if I'm being completely honest right now. Bo Nix obviously looked a lot better last week, but I don't think they even played an FBS school last week. I thought they were FBS school, but I mean, BYU's going to go in there and give them hell. I mean, again, if you're only 3.5-point favorites at home, that's kind of telling in its own right. So it'll be a fun game to watch later on in the day. I think it's a primetime game, so that'll be fun to watch.
It's the game of the week, right?
I still slightly lean Miami A&M, but
no, I'm saying isn't it college football's game of the week?
3:30.
Oh, it's 3:30 game.
Yep.
I mean, it's 12:30 kick out there then, so no, it's not.
It's the ECG game of the week. Puka Nacua, who's who I was talking about. He didn't even play last week. Is he playing this week? I know he was hurt. He missed Saturday's game. I hope he plays this Saturday. But regardless, off 100%. Kid special. First, second round draft pick, 100%. He's got it all. Started the game 2 weeks ago with a 75-yard touchdown. Just no biggie. We'll knock this one out. But all right, so let's get into our college football pick'em. I've done terrible. 2-1 last week, though. I was 2-1 last week. What?
I said Bill's the leader in the clubhouse. Hit the Superdog.
He was.
And everything.
He smashed the Superdog.
Smash the Superdog. Win outright. It's just bonus points out the wazoo.
Facts.
It's funny how much App State love they got on the show this week too. We even bring that up from last week, but I mean, you guys will hit one. I mean, you guys both missed by a half a point.
Yeah, but hitting it by 17 points is different than hitting it by 1.
I get it, but I mean, I'm just saying to your point, like you've been close. I think you missed week 1 by a half a point too.
Yep.
Yeah. So you guys will hit it. It'll tighten up. I have no doubt.
So, Bill, what's the order this week? Leader in the clubhouse chooses.
I'll go. We'll go reverse order. Gene, Cottrell, me.
Okay. So I'll start with mine. I have 3 of them. 2 of them are very heavy favorites this week. And my super dog has no chance of winning. But they have a chance of picking up some points for me because it's a huge spread. So first game, I have LSU plus 1.5 over Mississippi State. I think that Brian Kelly and LSU bounce back this week. I believe it. I think that, I think they're a better team than Mississippi State. And I think they end up winning the game. Plus 1.5 to me is easy money. Second game I have is, it's my favorite game for Ohio State. Ohio State plays against these dog shit schools. They run up the score and make everybody believe CJ Stroud should be a Heisman Trophy winner. So they play Toledo this week, and they're 31.5-point favorites. They'll probably beat them by 50. I have no doubt there. And then the last game is last game I picks is Alabama minus 48.5 over Louisiana Monroe. I think Nick Saban destroyed them this week at practice after that. And ECG helped me finish this third. I got Alabama minus 48.5. For my super dog, it's a trap game. Next week is a huge game in the ACC. Clemson, Wake Forest. This week, Clemson has to play La Tech. La Tech's a 33.5-point dog. I'll take La Tech to keep it close. Plus 33.5 for the super dog.
Okay. Gene, I love the picks. Two things though. With the LSU pick, that means you got to root for Brian Kelly. So I'm going to root for you to win, but I'm actively rooting for Brian Kelly to lose. I made that.
Fine. I'm rooting for him to lose too. If Brian Kelly loses, that would be great. I got a double-edged sword. It's perfect for me.
And then the Ohio State thing. I don't know if Njigba's playing or Fleming's playing. They still haven't figured out that offense yet. Arkansas State, I thought would be the game to do that. They didn't do it. So if he plays, I'm 100% on board. I think they beat him by 50. But if he doesn't play, I think they're still working some kinks out in the offense for whatever reason, no matter who they got a receiver.
Christopher Morrow just said it. I don't think there's any shot in hell Toledo wins a game or anything like that. The only thing I'm going to say is Toledo played another school last week, and they were minus 24.5, and they covered. Toledo could score a little bit. I'm not saying they cover. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying don't be surprised if it's like a 50 to 30 game. That's all, or 50 to 24. That's all I'm saying. Toledo's okay. Toledo's all right.
All right, Control, your turn.
All right, so I'm going to work my way up. The first one I got UTSA is plus 12.5 at Texas. Texas is in a situation where their starting quarterback's hurt, the backup quarterback's hurt. I don't know who's going to be under center. I don't think UTSA necessarily wins the game, but I think they keep it close just because Texas is scrambling to figure out what they could possibly do for the time being. The next one, I got Syracuse at home, minus 1.5 versus Purdue. Syracuse has quietly been the best looking team so far in the ACC. Clemson, of course, is still the favorites in that conference, but DJ's been struggling, and I just don't know what I'm getting out of them. Syracuse looked impressive in their first two games so far this season. I think they handle Purdue at home. My next game is a game that I talked about to watch for this week. I like Washington at home, minus 3.5 versus the Spartans. Spartans got to go travel across the country against a Washington team that has it dialed in on all cylinders on offense. Like I said, Michael Penix Jr. has been the guy sneakily good this year. He put up a whole bunch of points against Kent State. Doesn't mean much, but what I saw out of his arm just shows me that he's back to being that special talent that we saw at Indiana 2 years ago. And then my super dog. I think this is the one that hits. I'm not saying they win the game, but this one to me seems like easy points. Nevada is plus 23.5 at Iowa. Iowa hasn't scored 23 points this season. So I don't think Iowa's going to cover the 23.5. I don't care how bad the Wolfpack have been. I know Carson Strong's not there anymore. It doesn't matter. Give me the Wolfpack on the road plus 23.5 to pick me up some points.
He's not in the NFL anymore either.
I know. I'm sad.
We almost shared two picks this week, Control. Almost close. The UTSA
I think the
one.
Syracuse pick is huge. I think there's a lot of reverse line movement on that. A ton of money on Purdue, and the line's moving the other way. I looked at that. I almost picked it.
This week, I'm going to start. I'm taking Oklahoma minus 10.5 at Nebraska. Oklahoma's looked good 2 weeks in a row. They looked a little bit better last week than they did week one. Nebraska's a dumpster fire. They just fired Scott Frost. They've not looked good on defense. They gave up 45 points to Georgia Southern. They're not stopping anybody. I think Oklahoma can get in there, get up early. And I don't say they're coast, but I think they cover the 10.5. My second game, I cannot believe I'm about to pick this team as a football team. If it was college basketball, I was even high on them last year, but I can't believe I'm about to pick this team on a college football pick'em. I am taking Kansas plus 9.5 at Houston. Kansas is 2-0, and they beat two decent football teams. They went to West Virginia and Morgantown last week and beat up on West Virginia in overtime. Houston's coming off a loss, haven't looked as good as everybody else thought they were going to look this year. I think Kansas. I'll lay the 9.5, and I'll take Kansas on the road at Houston. My last one, this one stood out to me big time, and I'm not quite sure. Vegas still doesn't really believe in USC. I'm going to ride this horse until it burns me, I guess. They're minus 12.5 at home. That offense, Caleb Williams and Jordan Addison, has just looked unstoppable. Nobody's been able to stay in front of them. They're putting up crazy numbers at home. I will take USC minus 12.5. For my super dog, little foreshadowing earlier when I picked this team. I'm taking Ohio plus 18.5 at Iowa State. Spread's been good to me. I think there was times in that game that Ohio hung with Penn State. And to Cottrell's point, Iowa State won last week 10-7. I don't know if they've scored 18.5 points the entire year either. Not sure what they scored their first game, but they haven't looked great. They beat an Iowa team 10-7 last week in a rivalry game. I think Ohio can keep that game at least close enough where I might squeak out a couple of points. I don't think they win the game, but I don't think App State Lightning's going to hit twice for me. But I think they keep it close enough that I might get some points out of that. So that's my picks for the week.
I mean, right now, if you're not following Shally, I don't know what you're doing because he's killing it this year. Scholastic Shally lives up to the name. Will College Control soon follow? I know I won't.
I'm just a super dog behind. That's all.
That's all it is. Same with you. You guys hit one like I hit last week. It's super tight.
Well, we got some NFL action to get into. We got to recap week 1. I hope Shally's got some questions ready. I'm hearing that Shally's got some overreactions ready. I'm hoping that's the case. But let's recap week 1. We'll talk about that. And so recapping some of the big games, I'd love to hear your favorite game and your biggest disappointment. So your favorite game and your biggest disappointment in your recap of week 1.
Biggest disappointment in a team or just the game? I thought the game was going to be better.
A team.
Okay.
It's easy for me. My biggest disappointment in a team is easy.
I feel like we're probably all going to pick the same team. I mean,
I'll pick a different one then if you don't want. But for me, the biggest disappointment for me was Broncos country. Let's ride. Yeah. Yo, Nathaniel Hackett deserves it. You got to be kidding me this week.
Hey, don't worry about it. We'll get there. Don't worry about it.
Nathaniel Hackett is an absolute goof. Everything he did in that entire game was awful. Running shotgun at the 1 yard line twice, fumbling the ball twice to 1 yard line. Letting the clock kick down to kick a 64-yard field goal when you just paid a quarterback $265 million. That was a joke. I was so unimpressed. And I hate saying this, but it's the truth. The most impressive thing to me was the way the Giants responded to Brian Daboll. Going into Tennessee, Saquon Barkley, they went for it on 4th down, or they went for 2. The entire game, I think Brian Daboll did a great job of getting belief in those guys. And with that being said, that was super impressive to me. I don't remember the last time the Giants started 1-0. Saquon Barkley looks like he's back. He had the most impressive performance to me out of any player. So my most impressive performance was the Giants. I didn't expect it. And my biggest disappointment was Broncos country. Let's cry.
I feel like, of course, the Broncos is the easy one. Without being too homer, the Browns won their first game of the season in 18 years off of a Kate York 58-yard walk-off field goal. Of course, that had a lot of excitement behind it. But outside of that, the other game that I enjoyed seeing that Vikings team take it to the Packers. And Justin Jefferson, we talked about it when we talked about the receiver show. Justin Jefferson filled that Cooper Kupp role. He got a ton of targets, and he made so much happen after the catch. And that was a true foreshadowing, I think, of how this season's going to go. Both you guys had the Vikings in the playoffs. I had them just missing it, but the Vikings are going to be a tough out, man.
I got them winning the division.
I don't know who picked them as their lock of the week this past week. I don't know who did that. I told you that the Vikings +1 was easy money.
Yeah. So disappointment wise, though, of course, Broncos are there. The other one for me would be the Arizona Cardinals. I'm not saying that they should have won the game, but that performance they put out against Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs defense that's outside of the D line, it's who's who everywhere, and Justin Reed in the secondary. I was expecting a lot more. I know Nuke's not there, but I don't care. I want that. The Cardinals have enough playmakers on that offense to make something happen, and they let Pat Mahomes come in, sling 5 touchdowns, and they didn't answer anything. So for me, I'll take the Cardinals. That's most disappointing.
Try to do different stuff than you guys did, so it's not all the same.
Can I comment on the Cardinals real quick?
Go ahead.
I just want to make a comment. They look like an unprepared team, and I'll take another shot at Kyler Murray. I don't know if you've seen Coach Jason Brown's breakdown of the hot read blitz that Kyler Murray just didn't pick up, didn't understand being an NFL quarterback. I will consistently keep saying that quarterback and coach tandem will not work in the NFL, and it just won't work. And listen, you want to blame Kyler Murray? That's fine. I'd rather see him in a different situation. I want to see, and they're married to each other. They just signed extensions this offseason. I think that's a terrible thing for the Arizona Cardinals. I think the Arizona Cardinals will end up being a dumpster fire with those two at the helm, because I think that, and listen, you could say what you want about Kyler, and that offense didn't look good, but I'll take it a step further. Their defense looked like trash too. Their team looked unprepared, and be unprepared like that. You can't just blame the quarterback. That coach has to have a ton of blame. That Arizona Cardinals team looked awful. They home opener, and Kansas City went through their defense like a hot knife through butter.
I think there's a real disconnect, and I would say a real issue in Arizona. I think you hit everything on the head with that. I think they did look ill prepared, and at the end of the day, that's gonna go back to your head coach. And you know, on top of all that, Kyler Murray's been in the league for 3 years now. You can't miss blitzes like that. I mean, that's rookie stuff, man. It's rookie stuff. And
it's college stuff.
It is.
It's just college stuff.
It just
get no hot read on a safety in the box. Like, how I knew that, bro. I'm not an NFL coach. I knew that. Like, I get you have to have a hot read. Sorry, good.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. I think it's spot on. I mean, but I think it lends credence to that clause they had in his contract, and again, when the whole team looks as bad as they did, that's going to fall on the head coach. That's going to fall on Cliff. But Kyler just, I mean, at some point you're going to have to second guess giving Kyler Murray $250 million.
100%.
He's got to be better. He's got to be better. But yeah, I mean, I think that's something to watch. I mean, I think that has the potential to be quite interesting.
Nobody's cheered for that kid more, Bill. Nobody. No, I cheer for that kid. I want him to be ultimate success in the NFL. And my last hanging thread of him being a success is he needs to go to a situation in which a coach will push him and force him to be better than what he is. I don't think Cliff does that. I think Cliff knows he got that job and that those two are married at the hip. So he doesn't want to piss off his young brat baby quarterback. But at the end of the day, man, he needs a Mike Tomlin. He needs a coach to get in his face and make sure he's going to play football, because I don't believe that. I believe that marriage is destined to fail.
I mean, it's becoming increasingly looking that way. At the same time, though, I don't know if. Listen, I mean, we've talked about it for years. With the most recent guy we could point to that we've heard stories about is Carson not being able to be coached hard, and I don't know if Kyler has a little bit of that in him. I don't know if Lincoln Riley kissed his ass in Oklahoma, and Cliff's obviously doing it now. I don't, and that was kind of part of the stuff that came out last year with him being a leader. And, when certain things were said, like he would shut down and he wouldn't respond, and he said the wrong things to teammates. I think he's got a little bit of that in him as well. And I think hard coaching can get that out of him, because, it's when you have a guy, like you said, I think Mike Tomlin is a perfect example. When you have a guy who's won a Super Bowl, never had a losing season, and is a no bones about it, my way or the highway type guy, you're going to shape up real quick and play football the way that guy wants you to play football, you're not going to play. And I agree with you 100% that I don't think Cliff's the guy that's going to do that for him. I don't think Cliff's capable of getting that out of him. I think they both better mature real quick, though. They got a lot of money invested in a lot of people. If I recall, though, I mean, Gene, you probably know this. Maybe Cottrell does too. I know Cliff got his new deal, but doesn't he have a really low buyout for it? Or something like that came out about it. I could be wrong. I could be thinking about the wrong person.
I don't recall. They just signed the deal this offseason, though.
Yeah.
And as much as you want to, like, bro, I said this last year. It was week 15 that the Colts were playing the Cardinals, and Kyler Murray threw a bad interception, and he blamed it on AJ Green. And when he blamed it on AJ Green, threw his hands up at him and showed him up in the middle of the field. That is the worst thing you can do as a leader. AJ Green has been a professional football player for over 13 years in the NFL. You don't last that long in the NFL and be that elite for that long and not know how to run a route or understand where you need to be at. And the last thing I'm going to have is kid Kyler throwing his hands up at me on the field. It reminds me of Steamin' Willie Beeman. I'm not like trying to be smart. That team's just going to quit on him until he learns how to put a team first mentality, study. By the way, I don't know how accurate the stat is, but somebody just posted he's 0-14 on Call of Duty.
I saw that. That's great.
And it's like, I asked Justin. Justin's a huge Call of Duty guy. It was a double XP weekend this weekend.
Yeah, that's what said.
I don't get it. I don't understand how this kid could be this just clueless. And I'd bench him. If a coach has the gall, bench him, sit him down. I just can't take it. I can't take it.
Who's their backup?
Doesn't matter.
McCoy or Trace McSorley.
I thought McSorley. I don't think McSorley made the team. I thought he got cut.
No, he's back because Colt's hurt.
Okay.
So McSorley's the backup.
But after our Cardinals tangent, but I mean, I think that was all good stuff. I mean, it was all accurate. Listen, at the end of the day, we've all seen this a million times too. At the end of the day, they're going to pick Kyler over Cliff, no matter whose fault it really is. If they continue to play that way, they have a lot of money. Yeah, they've got a lot of money invested in a lot of people on that team. Cliff's going to be on the losing end of that. And at this point, man, I mean, again, you can't have a home opener and come out that flat. If you can't get up for the Kansas City Chiefs coming to town, then it's kind of telling on the head coach as well. Hate to say it, but I would say impressive wise, you guys covered a little bit. I can tell you, I already love watching AJ Brown be an Eagle. I thought he had a great premiere with the team. I thought the Bills looked incredible for even the couple dumb turnovers they had to throttle the Rams like that. Bills are going to be a problem. I mean, I already talked to Gene about this a little bit, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because it was awful playing conditions. But that being said, Trey Lance still played terrible on Sunday. Justin Fields figured it out. Justin Fields found a way to throw 2 touchdown passes. Not going to put it all on him. I thought the 49ers looked like crap in general. But, at the end of the day, playing in a monsoon is not the easiest thing in the world. But both teams are playing in it. At the end of the day, Chicago just looked like they wanted that game more. And that was, that's a little disappointing for me because I'm not quite as high on Trey this year as Gene is, but I also I'm one of the people that is a fan and thinks he is going to be what everybody thinks he's going to be. So that premiere, that debut for him Sunday as a starter was a little disappointing for me.
What's your biggest win for the week?
Biggest win. Honestly, man, I might stick with the Bills, on top of everything you guys said. I think it's a big win for them. I mean, we all talked about the game that ended their season last year in KC, and they just always seem like every year they get one step closer to finally getting there, and to go on the road and beat the Rams and beat them convincingly, I think is a great start to their season. They're going to go home this week, and they have, I believe they have Tennessee, and I'm not going to give anything away, but I don't think that's a close football game either. I think the Bills. And credit to Gene on this. He's been saying this all off season. They're starting to develop a really good number 2 next to Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis. He had a great opening week. They look damn good, man. I mean, they weren't my pick to come out of the AFC, but they play the whole year like that and stay injury free. It's hard to imagine the AFC not going through Buffalo.
I hear you there. I want to comment on the 49ers thing, obviously, because I've been so high on Trey Lance. I watched that game in its entirety. Not only did I watch it on Red Zone when the Eagles were on, I watched a recap of the entire game. I watched every play from that game. The beginning of that game, Trey Lance looked awesome. He looked great. A huge pass to Brandon Ayuk to start the game. He was 3 for 4 for 60 yards. They scored a touchdown. Easy peasy. The rain got harder. The monsoon got stronger. The field conditions got worse. And it was constant. The training wheels. It was run the ball on first down, run the ball on second down, and it'd be 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. I hated the situations that they put him in. I hated they were in 3rd and long so often. And with the Chicago Bears taking their like not worrying about the run whatsoever and putting their heels loose and getting after the quarterback. A lot of tip balls at the line. No excuse. The San Francisco 49ers lost the game. Trey Lance didn't look great. But Justin Fields looked like trash for two and a half quarters too. I think Justin Fields is awesome. You know how high I am on Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields could easily have a breakout this year. I think he's the only positive on that Bears team. But let's not act like that game. The biggest disappointment that I didn't name was the Dallas Cowboys. They scored 3 points. They didn't score a touchdown open week. And I don't know how none of us basked in that glory and like looked at that and said, hey, the Cowboys scored 0 touchdowns. The only team in the NFL that didn't score a touchdown. I hope Dak recovers quickly. I never root for injuries. I'm not that guy. But even before Dak went out, the Cowboys looked like absolute garbage. Couldn't move the ball. CeeDee Lamb, they have no outside threat. They're lining CeeDee Lamb up in the slot, and they had no outside threat. They're missing their number 2 and number 3 wide receivers going into the game. But Tampa Bay absolutely abused them, and their offensive line looked worse and worse throughout that game. And I think the biggest hit of the whole weekend, that hit Leonard Fournette put on Micah Parsons was
vicious.
Whoa, that was incredible.
It was enough to make Micah start crying about it on Twitter. So
yeah, it was. I retweeted it. If I didn't have so many other, you got to be kidding me. I'd probably use that too. Micah crying on Twitter, but I think honestly, I didn't bring up Dallas because I said from the get go, I didn't think Dallas was going to be good this year. I'm tired of buying into the hype and to some degree even making myself see things that my gut instinct doesn't agree with. I've been on record. I said Washington is going to finish second in the division. That's probably way more likely now because of the Dak injury. And I mean, that's not the way I want to be proved right. Because like Gene said, I'm not happy when anybody gets hurt, but I just don't think Dallas is that good. I think they have a couple of really good players and big names. I've never said anything other than Dak's overrated. The offensive line, like Gene's credit just said, is falling apart at the seams, like weekly at this point. You're going to throw Jason Peters in there next week, probably, assuming he's in good enough shape to play. I'm just not a Dallas guy. I just don't think they're a good overall football team. I just don't.
Okay. Well, it's, there's a ton of games that happened last week. We don't have time to go over every single one of them. Evan McPherson missing 2 kicks was huge versus the Steelers. I know it was the long snap route and the timing was off, but that extra point wins the football game. It gets blocked. And then he has a chip shot field goal that he pulls 17 yards left. That was huge. Rodrigo Blankenship got cut from the Colts for missing a kick. It was not a good week for kickers in the NFL. And the one kicker that had a great week was somebody I had in my top 10, Cade York.
Hit a big walk-off.
That would have been good from 70.
Yeah,
I drafted him in every one of my leagues.
He's got a count. I picked him up. I actually picked him today because he was a free agent in my one league because I have Bucker, and they already ruled him out for tomorrow night.
I picked him up in every league. I drafted him.
But, the snapping and the timing issue on the chip shot was off, but he's a good enough kicker. He can make that adjustment on his run up and still make that kick. The other one was blocked. Nobody blocked Minka. I mean, that kick was dead center. You saw it come off his foot. I mean, that's not really on him per se. But
agreed. I love McPherson. Trust me.
I mean, you know how big a fan I am. So, I mean, I don't think it's the end of the world for him.
They got a get right game. They get to play Dallas this week.
Yeah,
and
you got.
I will say the other like kind of elephant in the room. I mean, not that it matters to any of us, but the AFC South had 4 teams play. 2 of them play each other, and nobody got a win. So, I mean, that was insane.
Listen,
Texans look great to start, and then Davis Mills.
Yeah,
Davis Mills turned back into Davis Mills.
Bro, he looked great. I'm like sitting there like all these people that have Davis Mills ranked ahead of like all these NFL quarterbacks on these quarterback lists that like ECG put out and all those other places. I'm like, I don't think he's that good. And he looked good for 2 quarters. I'm like, oh shit, some zip on the ball. And the whole second half, he looked like trash.
It almost seemed like they were scared to use Dameon Pierce too. It was like Dameon Pierce finally gets the rhythm. Then they put in.
It's almost like they want to lose.
They were like, Rex Burkhead, go ahead and get in there. Get some time.
Well, I was so floored by that. I have respect for Lovey. I do, but I was floored by that.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the year, they're going to look at that. That's one that got away. On the hindsight of that, though, I mean, Colts didn't look good by any means. Jacksonville is Jacksonville still Jacksonville. I think it's going to take a little time for Dougie P down there.
We talk about that, but I don't think Jacksonville's still Jacksonville. I disagree there. I think Dougie P did a great job. They were winning that football game. So first of all, once again, the tale of 2 stories with Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz looked great to start the game, then 2 awful interceptions, and then
second one was really bad.
The one to Trayvon Walker,
yeah,
that was terrible. And then he takes him down and he throws a dime to Terry McLaurin. Man, that was just I think that Jacksonville looked good for most of that game. And if Washington is good or they finish second in the NFC East, that's not a bad loss to lose at Washington. Trevor looked good for most of the day. Yes, he might have been hesitant on some plays, but I think Trevor looked good for most of the day. They moved the ball up and down the field at will. I'll tell you right now, Etienne spiked a touchdown pass that was thrown to him that he just dropped. It was awful. You want to talk about a guy that's not ready to play in the NFL right now? Travis Etienne is not ready to play in the NFL right now. James Robinson is their guy. Just understand that right now.
I just don't know what James Robinson is going to have to do for somebody to just stand behind him and be like, you're RB1. Like, I just don't get it at this point.
Well, he's just coming off of a torn Achilles, so
I get it. But the 2 years before that, I mean, his rookie year had a great year out of nowhere, and then last year he was playing well until he got hurt. And it's still always like, we don't know what we're going to do at James yet. Like, if we could bring somebody in and somebody that's better, like, I don't know what the guy's got to do to just lock down a running back spot. Like, I just don't get it.
Well, you're not going to lock down a running back spot after Etienne was drafted in the first round. That's not going to happen.
I get it, but why? Again, I mean, I think we could all argue. I mean, Etienne will probably be a good player and be a weapon, but I mean, it's not like Jacksonville was at a lack of holes they could have filled with drafting somebody else in that spot. That's all I'm saying.
Comfortable.
Before we preview week 2, I will tell you that throw that Wentz made to Terry McLaurin down the sideline.
It's 2017, bro.
That's exactly what that was. But his decision making still extremely, extremely questionable. Those 2 interceptions were awful, dreadful. So, I mean, I don't want to beat my chest about beating Jacksonville at home, just like the Eagles shouldn't be beating their chest about beating Detroit on the road.
Right.
Good.
I mean, you guys watched the game. You saw what the game was. Yes, Detroit they were in striking range, but in reality, that was a 2-possession game. It was exactly how I expected it to be, where it'd be a 2-possession game and the Lions were just trying to catch up. I don't think the Eagles were in serious danger of losing that game. But I mean, AJ Brown looked good. You got good takeaways from that game, I'll say.
I wouldn't say serious, but I would tell you that there was points in that game that if Detroit made a play, then it was going to become a real interesting football game.
2 points on that game. God, I'm sorry, God.
No, I said the pick six was huge. I mean, I don't know how much we're going to talk about this game. I mean, because I have points on it too. I don't want to go off on a tangent.
Do you have? I'll ask you a question. Do you have how many questions do you have overreactions?
It's like half overreactions, half hot stove. There's 7.
Okay, so we don't really have too much time to get into the game unless one of those questions are on there. But the 2 points I want to say, and then you can say what you need to say about it, is one, I just talked to 2 Detroit fans earlier today that acted like the intentional grounding call that didn't get called, that the league said they missed for Jalen Hurts when it was 7-7 was the reason that the Lions lost the game. I think that was the most asinine comment ever. I'm like, guys, like, stop. But the one thing I'll point out about the Eagles is Jonathan Gannon still sucks. It's not the ingredients, it's the chef. I have all the best ingredients in the world. I bought all the best. I went to the farmer's market. I got all the best tomatoes. But if I can't cook, it's not going to taste good. The scheme sucks. It is 35 points. Detroit went up and down that field like nobody's business. And then Elliott Shore Parks is on Twitter blaming the players again. He's in love with Jonathan Gannon. It's the scheme. It's a soft zone bullshit scheme. I can't stand it. Sorry, I'm done.
No, I mean, I'm glad you brought up Gannon because he was point number 1. They started the game. Listen, we know Detroit's a run first team. DeAndre Swift's tearing us up, and where's Jordan Davis? I mean, where's our run stoppers? It's just to Gene's point, we went out and got this talent. I mean, on paper, we have one of the best defenses in the league. We need somebody who can coach the guys the right way and be in schemes that are going to maximize our talent. And he's not the guy. We got away with that game, in Detroit. I think the difference here is I think we'll win a lot of games this year despite Josh Gannon or Gannon. But I think the frustration is, I know it is for me, if you went out and got me, not that you could get it, but like you went out and got me like a Dan Snyder type guy, that is an absolute defensive genius and, can maximize the talent we have on defense, the team has a chance to be special.
Get Vic Fangio, get Rex Ryan, get anybody a defensive mind to play defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Play defense coordinator. Jesus Christ. To be your defense coordinator. I agree with you.
But I agree. I think the team has a chance to be special at that point. And I think we'll go 12-5 or somewhere around there. Everybody's going to be happy. They're going to think we're ahead of schedule and blah, blah, blah. And I think we're wasting a year. I honestly do. That's how I feel. It's just frustrating. That game shouldn't have been that close. It just really shouldn't have been. I think AJ Brown looked great. We got to figure out a way to get Devontae the ball. Some of that falls on play calling. Some of that falls on Hurts forcing the ball to AJ. But he's too big of a weapon to not get the ball to. And then I'll beat this dead horse one more time because I did it last year and I'll do it again. Let Miles Sanders carry the ball 15 times. When they decided to run the ball on Sunday, they could. The dude had 9 carries for almost 100 yards. He averaged 9 yards of carries. They finally let him score a freaking touchdown for once. That was great. We had 4 rushing touchdowns. The game was
his third down run.
Yeah.
Biggest play of the game.
The kid's healthy and you give him opportunities. Again, I'm not going to say he's elite, but he has a chance to be very good. And he's a weapon. We just need to use him more. I just don't think we use him enough. I've felt that way for a long time.
All right, so let's get into hot stove. Get ahead, brother. I'm ready for him. Right. I'm going to answer these questions quick, as if it's hot stove.
Yeah.
First reaction.
Some of these aren't, don't necessarily need a bunch of discussion. Some of them are quick answers. What injury more potentially damaging to the team? TJ Watt to Pittsburgh or Dak to Dallas?
Dak to Dallas.
Not close.
So since 2000, New England, Pittsburgh, one of them has made the playoffs every single year. Who is more likely to miss this year? Pittsburgh, New England, or both?
New England. I think both miss, but more likely is New England.
Agreed.
Which coach will be on the hot seat the fastest?
Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, Mike McCarthy. That's a good one. Let me not cheat and use his answer. Let me get a different one because I got to think about that one. Give me a second. It won't be the person it should be because he just signed an extension.
It's probably
It won't. Can I pick a coordinator? Jonathan Gannon.
So we just talked about him. Let's see. Which team that laid it done in week 1 do you believe was just that, just a blip and not indicative of how they're going to be this year?
Los Angeles
There's a few.
So I said pick one.
You
got the Rams,
49ers.
Yeah. Let's see. Which surprising NFC East team from Sunday? I'm not including the Eagles in that, so it's more of a Washington or the Giants question. Which one do you think that out of the two of them stays in the playoff hunt the longest?
Washington. Giants don't have a quarterback.
They don't have a quarterback, but I think Brian Dable is smart enough he knows Daniel Jones' limitations. Get Saquon Barkley the ball, let him make plays, and we'll figure it out from there.
The best rookie wide receiver in this class that I said was the best rookie wide receiver in this class is Jahan Dotson, and he's going to show that all year when he keeps catching touchdown passes. Jahan Dotson is going to be special. I said that before the draft. I'll say it again. He's the best rookie wide receiver in this class.
Let's see. Saquon Barkley's back to being a top 5 running back.
Yes.
Agreed.
True.
And last one. I don't think it's a hard one, but you guys might. Green Bay Packers will miss the playoffs.
False.
True.
I agree with Gene.
I have them at the 7 seed to start the season. I think they could still be the 7 seed. True or false is really close. I'll tell you right now.
The Vikings is indicative of how their season's going to go.
The Vikings are going to run that division. I'm no doubt about it. Vikings win that division. No doubt about it. The one thing that I really wanted to see is Aaron Rodgers threw an absolute dime to Christian Watson, and he dropped it.
Yes, he did.
And that kid could be special if he just gets his concentration right. He's a 6'5" deer. He's a better version of what Chase Claypool should be.
Yep.
If he gets his hands right, if he gets, there's a reason he went to North Dakota State. Not to be an asshole, but
that's it. That was 7.
Okay, let's preview a few games this week. There's only 3 that are on the docket that I really feel like are previewable. Starting with Thursday night, the Chargers versus the Chiefs.
I hate that this is a Thursday night game. I'll start with that. This is the Amazon money talking from Bezos and Roger Goodell and their bromance. There's no way in hell this game should have moved to Thursday. None. If anything, this should have been the Sunday night game. But that being said, second week of the season, we're going to see it on 3 days rest, which sucks. It should still be a good game. I'm hoping it's not sloppy. Keenan Allen, I know, is already ruled out. Kansas City, I already mentioned earlier. Butker's not playing. I'm sure they'll sign a kicker between now and tomorrow night if they haven't already.
Justin Reed.
Is it the mic'd up stuff with him was hilarious though. If you found it, if you heard it, it was great. Listen, I mean, this is going to have all the talent in the world that you could ever want out of a football game. I hate that it's week 2 and I hate that it's on Thursday. I can't emphasize that enough. That being said, KC looked better last week than I thought they were going to. I don't know if that's, an indication of maybe how good they looked or if it was just how bad the Arizona Cardinals looked. I think it's a little bit of both. At the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. Another big QB matchup, him and Herbert. Are we picking these now or are we just previewing?
You can pick them unless it's on your pick them. We're previewing 3 games.
None of our preview games are on the pick 'em for me. At home, Arrowhead home opener. I'll slightly lean the Chiefs here. I think when it's all said and done, the Chargers still win the division. I think the Chiefs get this one early in the year at home, though.
Well, I just want to make a quick point. You keep mentioning Harrison Buckner being out. That's not even the biggest loss that the Chiefs suffered week 1. Trent McDuffie being put on IR for the whole season is a huge loss for the Chiefs. Their cornerback room is going to be absolute garbage. Now, what helps them is the fact that Keenan Allen's not playing. Yep. With that being said, Patrick Mahomes looked. I said this last week, and I'll say it again. Patrick Mahomes is got a point to prove, and I think we asked the question last week. Patrick Mahomes or Tyreek Hill, which one proves which one wrong? And I think Patrick Mahomes is on a man on a mission this year. He's proven why he's the best quarterback in football, and I think he can get it to every single receiver. What I watched last week between Juju, they're going to get Scott more and more involved. Travis Kelce, obviously. Valdez-Scantling didn't have a great game. Mecole Hardman scored a touchdown. Even Mecole Trash Hardman, I'm just kidding. But Mecole Hardman scored. I think that Kansas City Chiefs win this game early in the season. I think it might be a different story when they go play at LA later in the season, but I like the Chiefs in this one.
I'll go for the trifecta here. I got the Chiefs 1-2. I don't think it's indicative of how the season's going to go. I told you guys before, I still like the Chargers to win that division. Obviously, I got them winning the Super Bowl. But like you said, Gene, I think Patrick Mahomes right now, the man really on a mission. And I think it is going to hurt the Chargers to not have Keenan Allen for this being the first game without Keenan Allen on the road, short week. I know Mike Evans is there. I know Josh Palmer is there. But that void of Keenan Allen, I mean, essentially.
Mike Evans is there too?
Mike Evans.
Mike Williams.
When that trade happened.
Keenan Allen is that safety blanket for Justin Herbert, and he doesn't have that this week. So I think Kansas City, they'll have enough offense to win that game. I think it'll be a high-scoring game, even with it being on a short week.
Okay, so next game we talk about is Sunday. We got Thursday game, a Sunday game, and a Monday game. Baltimore Ravens, Miami Dolphins. It's the Ravens home opener. So you see the way the Dolphins looked last week. Dolphins looked good versus the Patriots. That defense looked really good. Waddle and Hill looked really good as a group. And Tua made a huge underthrow like he always does. But what are your thoughts on this game? I'll go first on this one because I want to go last on the Eagles. I think the Ravens win this game, and I think they win it comfy. They're almost one of my picks. I like the Ravens. I think the Jets are very underrated in the way, and it's my opinion, I think the Jets defense was very underrated. Their cornerback room looked really good as a whole. Sauce Gardner did not disappoint. Although he did get burned on the one touchdown to Rashad Bateman. Other than that, he was spotless. I'll take the Ravens, and I think the Ravens are able to run the football versus Miami, and I think Lamar Jackson has a big game.
I'll sandwich in between here because I'm sure you're going to be chomping at the bits to get to your Eagles. I am also taking the Ravens here. I agree 1,000% with what you said, Gene. I think the Ravens win, and I think they win it comfy. And I'll give you the foreshadow. They are one of my picks this week. I think the Ravens are going to be perfectly fine going up against that Dolphins team. To say what you want, yes, Tyreek looked impressive. Jalen Waddle looked impressive. He has the best touchdown celebration in football, I think, with the Waddle in the end zone. But I see that Ravens defense making it hard for Tua this week. So I like the Ravens in the home opener, and I like them comfy.
I'll make it a clean sweep. I like Baltimore as well. The only thing I disagree with you guys, I don't think it's comfy. I think it's a closer game. I think it's a one-possession game. I think Lamar makes enough plays down the stretch. I'll trust Lamar way before I trust Tua. We saw Bateman kind of come onto the scene last week. Had a huge game. And the rumor is J.K. Dobbins is trending towards playing. They're going to get their RB1 back. I hate that he went to Ohio State, but we all know how much of a fan J.K. Dobbins I am. So stop. Good. You guys can spell a 4-letter word. Congratulations.
I love it. College football season is upon us.
But yeah, I mean, it's home opener. I agree with a lot of things both you guys said. I think Baltimore is the more physical team. I think they're going to play. They're going to play that way. They're going to play with that edge. They're going to play their smash mouth version of football. And I think they just get it done. Like I said, I'll take my chances with Lamar making more plays than Tua. So I'll go Baltimore something like 27-21.
Okay, we got the Monday Night Football game. Minnesota Vikings at Lincoln Financial Field play the Philadelphia Eagles.
Monday Night Football.
Ba 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 ba.
Ba, 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 ba.
Control, you got to start us. Control, Bill Jean.
All right. No, I have no problem with that. Again, I don't think this has any bearings on how the season ends up. I think the Eagles win the division. I think they win it comfy. I think they take an L in the home opener, though. I got the Vikings in this one. I think Justin Jefferson is going to have a field day on that Eagles defense. And this is a situation where I think the Vikings aren't great in the secondary. So I do think the Eagles will have success on offense. But I do like the Vikings defensive line, and I think they'll do a good job at containing Jalen Hurts and just making them uncomfortable. So I do like the Vikings to win. I think this is another high-scoring game on Monday Night Football, too.
This is another game that I was just kind of talking about my mind playing tricks on me here. I feel one way, almost kind of try to talk myself into another way here. But I'm gonna go with what I did with Week 1 with the Eagles, and I'm going to trust my gut, and I think the Eagles pull this out in a close game. I think if Sirianni and the offense can stay on schedule, commit to running the football with Miles Sanders and Gainwell. I do like Minnesota's defensive line, but I also, I think you saw it last week. I don't like the way he played, but he played well in doing what he was doing. I think Jalen's going to make enough plays. I do think A.J. Brown and Devontae can have success against that secondary. And defense, I'm hoping, I'm praying to God we come out with a better game plan this week. We have the secondary. It's not really, contain Justin Jefferson. That's not going to happen. But I think we can limit at least a little bit what he does with Bradbury and Slay and all those guys back there. And I'll trust our defense to get a stop when it has to. And hopefully they slow down Dalvin Cook a little bit. And I don't know if I would have said this 2 years ago, but Kirk Cousins in crunch time isn't the best quarterback in the world. Not that Jalen's proven that he is either, but I'll take my chances with Jalen. I'll say the Eagles win 34-31 on Monday night, go to 2-0.
Yeah, it's funny. Before I really broke the game down, that was the exact score I had, 34-31. I won't tell you who I had winning, but matchups are different. Matchups make fights. I think that Minnesota is coming off a huge win versus the Green Bay Packers. They're headed on the road. I don't remember the last time Minnesota had a huge win and then had to head to Philadelphia the next week. I don't remember that. Can someone help me with that one? It might have been 2017. I don't know. But
the video started popping up all over Twitter, that guy and that Vikings fan today. We're getting close.
So let me break it down a little bit further. Vikings and the Eagles both start a little slow. Monday Night Football home opener for the Eagles, Kirk Cousins in prime time. I think the first half under is a lock. I think it might be 10-3 at the halftime. Very ugly start to the game. Second half, teams open up a lot more. A lot of talk about Jonathan Gannon. He has a good first half. I think the Vikings have a good first half. I think Jalen Hurts is a little bit off early in the game because of the home opener jitters, which happen. Second half, the offenses open up a ton. So I think that the scoring comes back and forth. The score's 24-23 at this point. The Vikings are up by 1. Jalen Hurts down the field, Devontae Smith to the 33-yard line. There's 3 seconds left, and Jake Elliott nails a 50-yard walk-off field goal, and the Eagles win this one 26-24. Birds. It's a little flair for the dramatic there for you boys.
That sounds almost like exactly what happened in the Browns-Panthers game last week. Score and everything.
Well, it's not exactly what happened because the Browns were up a ton, almost blew that game. That's not what's going to happen in this one.
I'm talking about the end, the last possession, 24, 23.
Well, I just maybe I'm just hoping the Eagles are the Browns.
That's it. Gene didn't mention a Fugazi roughing a passer call anywhere either, so there's that.
All right, so let's get into our NFL pick'em. I will go last as I just want to go last.
Hey, no leader in the clubhouse talk with this.
No leaderboard for this one. College football, you get a leaderboard. This one, you don't. We'll go Bill, Cottrell, Gene.
Just dictatorship ruling of the NFL.
That's 100%. NFL pick'em. I will dictatorship roll at 70%, 2 straight years.
Hey, 2-1 right now. We're rolling strong.
I feel you. I'm 1-2. Don't worry, I'm gonna check. I got a fun one this week though. Mine's fun, I promise.
I was 1-2 as well. I did not have a good NFL week. I'm gonna start this way. I first looked at this game and I expected the spread to be way bigger considering all the circumstances surrounding it. I got Cincinnati minus 7.5 at Dallas. I think it's the easiest game on the board this week, which means Dallas will probably win this freaking game somehow. But I don't think it's any way possible that Joe Burrow plays as bad as he did last week. Dallas's defense is going to be okay. They're going to give up points eventually, though. And with Dak being out, I just really don't know how effective they're going to move the ball against Cincinnati. Again, I think Cincinnati probably wins something 24-13, somewhere in that realm. So I think they cover the 7.5. My second game, can't believe I'm going to do this. New York Jets at the Cleveland Browns, -5.5. I'm going to take the Browns here. Home opener. Nick Chubb had a great week last week against Carolina. Gene brought up a good point earlier. I think the Jets defense is kind of legit. Like I think they're solid. They're just on the freaking field too much because their offense stinks. Zach Wilson is not going to play this week. It's going to be the Joe Flacco show again. That's one of the biggest reasons I'm taking this game. Cleveland, like I said, home opener. I think they get it done. I think they win by 10 points as well. My last game, going to lay a decent amount of points here, but I'm comfortable. I got Tennessee at Buffalo, -9.5. I'll take the Bills. I think they keep on rolling. I don't think there's going to be any slowdown in this team. Home opener for them as well. They played on the road last week. They had a couple extra days rest. Tennessee's coming off a game they actually just absolutely choked and blew. Now they got to go to Buffalo and play Josh Allen and that offense. I think Derrick Henry will probably have a decent game. Nothing great. That Buffalo defense is going to lock down Tennessee. They're not going to be able to throw the ball. And I think Josh Allen's going to have a ton of chances to put points on the board. I'll take Buffalo Bills 34, Tennessee 13. Those are my 3 picks for the week.
I think Dante can do this. I really do. I'm going to try to give him a little bit of a heads up. I know, Cottrell, you're going to go. Is there any way that you can get the number 95 as a graphic and put it up in a minute? I'll tell you why in a minute. But, Cottrell, go ahead.
All right. So, Bill, I 100% agree with your first pick in the Bengals, -7.5 at Dallas. I think that seems like the lock of the week. I'm assuming there's some other unknown things going on with that game because Dallas with the backup quarterback, the Bengals playing pissed off because they lost last week against the Steelers. I don't see why that spread is only 7.5. Dak couldn't get it done with those bunches of receivers, and you expect their backup quarterback, who, not to mention, they cut the 2 backups that they had all preseason. So who knows who's actually going to get the start for this game. I like the Bengals to cover that 7.5, and I think that'll be easy. I mentioned it earlier. I like Baltimore -3.5 at home against the Dolphins. I don't think Tua and that Dolphins team will be able to keep up points-wise with the Ravens team. I think the Ravens just throw too much at them, defensively confuse them, get some turnovers, and they get it rolling at home. And then I like the over in the Arizona at the Vegas Raiders. I think the Raiders are a team where we saw the Cardinals couldn't stop anybody. And I think the Raiders offense is good enough to put up points against that Cardinals team. But on the flip side of it, I don't love the Raiders defense. Yes, they have pieces that I love here and there, but I think the Cardinals are going to be able to score points against that Raiders team. So I love the over 51.5 in that game.
So I need the number 95. And then I want to put a big period in between the 90 and the 5. I know you can't, but 9.5 this week. 9.5. I'm gonna rock chalk. I'm never a chalk walker. I'm never rocking chalk like this ever before. There's 3 teams I see that are -9.5. One of them's 8.5 now, but I love all 3 of them. I got the Packers -9.5 over the Bears. Bears coming off of a huge opening day win, going to play the Packers. Packers coming off a huge letdown. Aaron Rodgers owns them. Aaron Rodgers is your daddy. I'll take the Green Bay Packers -9.5. Second game, Broncos country. Let's ride. I got the Broncos coming off a disappointing loss in Seattle, get to go home to play against the Texans team who fell apart in the second half. I think the Texans getting a tie was a win for them. I think the Broncos losing at Seattle was a huge loss. I think the Broncos roll in this one. Broncos country by 25. And then the next game I have, listen, I can't get them to go to the Super Bowl if they're going to lose open 2 straight weeks. San Francisco 49ers are playing against the Seattle Seahawks. And the big point about this is Jamal Adams is out for the season now. The Seahawks just won their Super Bowl, beating Russell Wilson. The 49ers just lost a game at Chicago. If you look at trends, if you take teams that lost opening weekend or didn't cover or disappointments versus teams that won, underdogs that won, it hits at an astronomical level. I'll take the San Francisco 49ers over the Seattle Seahawks in San Fran. All three teams that were on the road last week that lost, all three teams coming home to win big. -9.5. Remember those numbers. By the way, the Niners game's already down to 8.5 because the public is hammering Seattle. So you can wait to game time, probably get that game at 8, 7.5. That game is a mortal lock. Niners.
I almost picked a Denver game. But on top of the Jamal Adams news, Justin Simmons got put on IR today as well. He's only going to be out 4 weeks, but he's not going to play. He's not going to play Sunday. Like I said, I don't think it factors into that game that much because I do agree. I think Denver rolls, but I was going back and forth between that and the Bills game. I just didn't go with Buffalo.
We're going to go through some quick Mount Rushmores real quick to end the show, and then a Triple G Canelo win. We got about 11 minutes left before we end up. So let's get into some Mount Rushmores. The Buffalo Mount Rushmore. And, it's a very fun that we did this because Buffalo just beat the crap out of L.A. But now they got to go against them in the Mount Rushmore. And L.A. over the years has some pretty solid players. So let's start off with Buffalo's Mount Rushmore. Let's lead it up. You got the man from the U who never wanted to play there. You got Jim Kelly. You got one of the all-time leading sack leaders in the history of the NFL. You got Bruce Smith. You got the Dominator, the guy that won Czech Republic a gold medal on his back by himself with a 1-0 win in the gold medal game, Dominic Hasek. And you got the juice. The juice is loose. O.J. Simpson. The juice is loose. Jim Kelly, Bruce Smith, Dominic Hasek, and O.J. Simpson. Gentlemen, your thoughts on the list?
I'll say this. I mean, especially when we threw OJ on at the end, I'm not sure if, he should be on the list for whatever, but without saying anything derogatory here.
About the glove?
Yeah, glove don't fit. Must have quit.
You must have quit.
Yeah. Instead, I'll go to jail for 8 years for trying to steal my Heisman back with a gun. But, who am I to judge? I'll say this. When we first said Buffalo, I was like, it's going to kind of be like lopsided. This is a solid list. I mean, Jim Kelly is a Hall of Fame quarterback. Bruce Smith is a Hall of Fame defensive end. Dominic Hasek's a top 4 or 5 goalie of all time. And again, OJ's a Hall of Famer. It's a lot stronger than I thought it was going to be. This is more of an interesting matchup than I thought we were going to have. So it was, it's kind of refreshing. Not a lopsided, blowout this weekend.
Well, hey, listen, we don't want it to be like LA versus Buffalo on Thursday Night Football. Our games, we try to make them close here on Wire to Wire. We don't want 31-10s. We don't want that shit.
And honestly, I like this Buffalo Mount Rushmore. I think that looking at these, looking at the 4 of them, I would say, I mean, we know what OJ was on the field specifically. 2,000 yard rusher, how dominant he was. He was a star. He had great commercials with Hurts and things like that. This Buffalo Mount Rushmore would be a tough out for many teams, for many cities. But I mean, they're about to be going up against a juggernaut. Bruce Smith, most sacks in NFL history. We already talked about Hasek being one of the best goalies all time. And then Jim Kelly was Mr. Get you to the Super Bowl and not finish. So this is a great Mount Rushmore.
You know what I think is interesting about Buffalo's Mount Rushmore? You know what I think is interesting about Buffalo's Mount Rushmore? You got Jim Kelly from the U, who never wanted to go to Buffalo. If you watch the from LA to Marino.
Yep.
Never wanted to go to Buffalo. You got Dominik Hasek from the Czech Republic. You got O.J. Simpson from USC. None of these guys wanted to go to Buffalo. By the way, O.J. Simpson, I don't know if you know the story, should have been an Eagle.
Yep.
Should have been an Eagle. If you don't know the story, I'll enlighten you. The Philadelphia Eagles were playing in an awful game at the end of the season that they had no business winning. And they tried to win this. It was like last year or 2 years ago when the Jets lost out on Trevor Lawrence when they won a game that they had no business winning. The Eagles won their Week 17 matchup on like a last second field goal to get the number 2 pick. They would have had the number 1 pick. They would have took O.J. Simpson. And in turn, they took somebody that you probably never heard of and who wasn't a good NFL player. But it's funny.
Ever.
But the only person that's close to Buffalo and that wanted to go to Buffalo was Bruce Smith, a Vatech guy, Virginia guy, went up to Buffalo. But I just think it's interesting. It's a good list. But when we unveil LA, I don't know. I think LA is still going to be a little better.
So here's the good question for both of you guys. I'll pose it real quick. It's a little bit of projecting, but assuming Josh Allen continues to keep playing the way that he does and he wins a Super Bowl, I would say 10, 15 years from now, he probably kicks somebody off this list. Who would it be?
Jim Kelly.
O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson probably should be on the list to begin with.
I don't know if I'm kicking Jim Kelly off.
O.J. was...
Jim
OJ
Kelly
was
is the definition of Buffalo. What Jim Kelly's done for Buffalo... Bro, all right, so like you can't make that argument and then argue for Bill Russell being in for Boston. Because Jim Kelly is to Buffalo what Bill Russell was to Boston.
Bill Russell won 11 championships.
It's not about the championships. You were talking about who's the better player, Bill Russell or Larry Bird?
Larry Bird.
So why would Bill Russell be on there over Larry Bird?
Who's a better quarterback, Jim Kelly or Josh Allen?
Right, Jim Kelly right now. Do you forget the K-Gon? Do you
How-
realize how good that offense was?
Okay, based on what Bill just said, he goes on, wins Super Bowl, wins an MVP, and he looks like this, what we see right now for the next 10, 15 years. Who would be the better quarterback?
I mean, you can't say he looks like what he did in week 1. If you were talking about projecting his career, Jim Kelly's still better than Josh Allen.
How he looked
I think
last
that's
year.
laughable that you're already saying Josh Allen's going to be better than Jim Kelly.
Bill just said if he won a Super Bowl and won MVP. I think if he
Bro,
does that,
I could
yes,
argue
he is
Thurman
better than
Thomas
Jim
would be on
Kelly.
this list over O.J. Simpson.
Ooh.
I could argue that K-Gun offense was unbelievable. It revolutionized.
I
It
get it,
revolutionized football.
I grew up with
By
that
the way, the
Bill
Buffalo
team.
Bills were a huge favorite, and if it wasn't for Bill Belichick and that freaking 1-6 defense they ran, that was absurd with all those linebackers on the field to slow down for just a half. That's all they did. They slowed down for a half for the Giants to win that Super Bowl. Jim Kelly would have a Super Bowl, and that was one of the greatest coaching jobs Bill Belichick's ever done. The guys won 6 Super Bowls.
I mean, that's fine, but at the end of the day, if Josh Allen wins an MVP and he wins the Super Bowl, I'm taking him before I take Jim Kelly.
Cool.
So you think Jim Kelly's the weakest person on this Mount Rushmore?
No. I'm not saying that.
Well,
But
why can't you have
I'm
two
saying
quarterbacks on the
Jim-
Mount Rushmore?
you can, but they play the same position. I would just put those two head to head against each other and then knock one off. That's all I'm saying.
I would have to agree with Gene. I think it's
How
OJ
many
for me.
cities have we had 2 quarterbacks on though? Like we usually just pick the one best quarterback and then go from there.
Well, I mean, I don't think we're
When
projecting.
we go to
big time
Green
here.
Bay, you better believe that Favre and Rodgers are both going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, we were in San Francisco and we only had one quarterback.
Steve Young isn't as good as people thought he. Never mind. I'm not going to get into that hole. I won't go on that bridge. Steve Young is a little bit. Stop. But all right, we got to move. LA's Mount Rushmore. Let's pull it up. We got LA's Mount Rushmore. LA 1. Now let me explain to you why it's LA 1 versus LA 2. LA 2 is the secondary teams in the city. The Angels, the Clippers, and then the athletes that are out that are like synonymous for Los Angeles, which we'll get into LA2 when it comes up. LA2 has the ability to be better than LA1, could win the whole thing, just to be clear. It's not like
LA2's a
first
problem.
or second. No, but I'm saying it's not 1 or 2. It's 1 being their primary teams, just like we did for New York, and 2 being the secondary teams and the athletes that are from that area.
Yep.
But let's unveil this. Kobe Bean Bryant, Irwin Magic Johnson, Kareem Skyhook Abdul-Jabbar, and the most dominant lefty pitcher you will ever watch, Sandy Koufax. This is a stud list. I'll start. You have 3 players in the NBA top 10 of all time and the greatest left-handed pitcher ever. I'm going LA over Buffalo here. You guys can, I get it. LA's list is cool. I mean, Buffalo's list is cool. We're talking Showtime. We're talking about 82 points. We're talking about the greatest scorer in NBA history and a left-handed, just absolute dominance. I think that Sandy Koufax, and the comparison I get for him, because he had such a short career, is the Barry Sanders of baseball, a football like comparison. Just dominant, short career, small span of dominance. But this LA list is solid.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going LA as well. I had to give Buffalo its due and its, its praise. Like I said, just Buffalo just doesn't scream big sports city. So when we said Buffalo, and then we kind of started putting it in pen to paper, I was like, it's actually like a really good list. But it's not going to beat LA. G's 100% right. Sandy Koufax is the best left-handed pitcher in the history of baseball. Still to this day, probably the best slider. I think you have 3 Laker greats. Gene kind of summed it up. All top 10 in the history of the game. Irvin Magic Johnson is the best point guard ever, as of right now, anyway. And then you have Kobe and Kareem, who are just absolute legends. So it's an easy pick, but like I said, Buffalo was a better opponent than I thought they were going to be at the initial conversation of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a clean sweep here. I think LA is the clear winner here. You guys talk about those 3 being top 10 players. I mean, I think depending on who you talk to, they could potentially be 2 of the top 6 all time, just with, Wilt, LeBron, and MJ being somewhere in there, no matter how you do your rankings. Of course, Bird too as well, top seven guys. They're special. And guys, championships all across the board. And then with Koufax, you guys mentioned best lefty ever. And I guys told you before when we were doing Arizona, Randy Johnson was my favorite baseball player ever. I mean, when you talk about lefties, it goes Koufax and then Johnson. So, of course, got to respect everything that Koufax did because I know how great Johnson was, and Koufax is even better. So, I'm rolling with LA here, and it's unfortunately not close. But Buffalo, you had a good squad.
The 4 falls of Buffalo. That's funny you brought up Randy Johnson because I was going to ask you guys this quick question before we moved on. Just quick predictions on Canelo, and then we'll get into You Got to Be Kidding Me. I was going to ask you guys a question, Koufax or Randy Johnson? My vote's for Koufax, but I think it's a lot closer than what most baseball pundits will.
It's Koufax, and I'll disagree with you on this. Carlton is closer to Johnson than Johnson is to Koufax.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Okay, that's fine. And Cottrell, you already said Koufax, right?
Koufax. Yep.
All right, so just quick predictions on Canelo versus Triple G, and then we'll get into You Got to Be Kidding Me. We're already at 9:02. We're 2 hours in. I want to just make this very clear. I think that Triple G won their first 2 fights.
Oh.
And I think the first, just follow me. Well, 100% the first fight. It wasn't close. The first fight was laughable. And the fact, the first fight almost made me stop watching boxing because that's how lopsided that fight was. And that was the one where, if you remember, Larry Merchant went on a huge rant. It wasn't Larry Merchant. It was somebody on ESPN went on a huge rant after that fight, going
Teddy
nuts. Teddy Atlas, that's
Atlas.
it.
Yep.
Went nuts because that fight was. This is why people don't watch boxing, because it was a joke that fight was scored the way it was. The second fight was super razor thin. The announcers, in my opinion, were told to call that fight for Canelo. I felt like the De La Hoya money was behind that to sway the public opinion. I watched that fight, the CompuBox stats. I checked scorecard after scorecard. I watched that with 2 huge boxing promoters that I knew personally. I had to fight 115, 113 for Triple G the second time they fought. But I could understand a Canelo win the second time they fought. The third time they're fighting, Canelo is going to kill him. Triple G is not the Triple G of the first 2 times they fought. I'm sorry. Triple G is a good boxer, was a great boxer, and in my opinion, should have 2 wins over Canelo. This fight, I don't think is close. I think Canelo wins this one. I think Canelo might stop him, if I'm being honest.
My hope of this is it's a good fight and it's a competitive fight. I unfortunately tend to lean in the same direction that you do. I think there's a chance Canelo stops him in the later rounds, maybe like round 9 or 10, somewhere around there. Triple G is just a lot older than Canelo, and it's we've seen it before with other great fighters. Father Time's undefeated. Nobody beats it. So Canelo is still at the top of his game. Triple G's a little bit on the downside. He's definitely on the back end. I'll disagree slightly with Gene. I do agree with the first fight. I think Canelo won the second fight. And I think he's going to win this fight. So I'll say just to shits and giggles, I'll say 10th round TKO. And I think it's a relatively probably one-sided fight, unfortunately. I believe he's around minus 400 or somewhere around there right now. So
he's minus 600.
Wow, somebody dumped a lot of money on him today then. Because he was minus 400 last night. So, I mean, that tells you all you need to know.
Triple G's plus 395. Canelo's minus 600. And I just sent Dante the CompuBox stats for the second fight. Just because that's how I was so in tune with that fight. And I remember watching it 3 times because of how like one-sided it was called. And I just sent Dante the CompuBox stats. He can look at them and I'll post them on the Wire to Wire page later. But I'm telling you right now, if you look at these stats, there's no way you can view that as a clear fight for it was not close. It was very close. But I thought Triple G had edged him in that fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think the second fight was definitely close. You guys both touched on that already. The one thing that I will say about Canelo is that although I'm not gonna sit up here and act like I watch every single one of Canelo's fights, I did watch his last fight against Dimitri Bivol. I don't know how. I'm not saying Triple G is Bivol or anything like that, but I mean that gives me some cause to pause. I mean, I think there's a way for Triple G to win, but I'm picking Canelo just because I trust him. I trust him more than what I trust Triple G at this point. I actually agree with Gene though about the second fight. I had Triple G winning as well, and while I was watching it, it seemed like if you were watching it with and I'm not saying you were biased, Bill, but it seemed like everyone that was watching it unbiasedly or didn't have like a dog necessarily in the fight, it seemed like they thought Triple G was ahead in the later rounds.
See, I'll say this: the people that I watched the fight with that night, they were. I would say actually probably everybody there was more of a Canelo fan than Triple G. But I had the fight extremely close. Like there was a couple guys there that said, they had him winning like 118, like 113, like crap like that, and I'm like that's not what we just watched. I had the exact score as Gene, but opposite. So I get it both ways. I don't think
I understand that. If you had it 7-5 the opposite way, I'm fine with that. That fight was close enough to me that 7-5 the opposite way could be plausible.
Right. And
I watched that fight with no betting interest, and I'll tell you right now, the thing that annoyed me the most was listening to the announcers call the fight. They were making it like it was Triple G was getting killed and Canelo was up.
Yeah.
Like it was absurd. But God, yeah. I'm sorry, Bill.
No, you're good. I mean, to try your other point, his last fight, which he did lose, he was way up in weight for that fight. He's not going to fight Triple G at that fight. They're going back down to more his natural weight. I think they're fighting 168, maybe. I could be wrong about that, but
yeah, it's definitely lower than that.
Yeah, he was fighting that last fight at true middleweight, which is way above where he should be. But I mean, listen, I mean, he did get humbled in that fight. He lost. I mean, he definitely lost. But I think him fighting back more towards his natural weight class, he's just so much stronger, and he's going to be quicker than Triple G at this point in his career. So
it's actually closer than I thought. It's actually closer than I thought. I just looked at the weight. They're going to fight at 160. I thought they were going to fight at 155, but you said 168. I thought you were off by 13 pounds. You're going to be off by 8 pounds. That's not much.
Yeah.
I thought it was 155 when I originally seen it, but I guess dude, Triple G is 40 years old. Like,
like I said, Canelo was smart to the point where he waited him out long enough to. He's going to have a decisive advantage. Like I said, I looked at his odds last night, and it was minus 400 when I just put little blurbs down for the notes for the show. So if it was minus 600 today, that means all the money that came in on that fight today is all on Canelo. All of it.
Minus 600 to plus 395. I just looked it up. Let's get into You Got to Be Kidding Me, boys. Cottrell, start us off.
All right, so I gave, once again, more foreshadowing from earlier. Nathaniel Hackett is on the chopping block this week. You not only do you have that Broncos, high-powered offense, you bring in Russell Wilson via trade, pay him $265 million. You're going up against the Seattle Seahawks, the former home of Russell Wilson, and you know how big of a game that is to him. And I'm not saying it's all your fault, but you had a lot of blunders here. We talked about the shotgun being from the 1 yard line, and Javonte Williams fumbling. I'm not saying that's on Hackett, but that's a horrible play call. I feel like you just hand the ball off to Javonte. You get under center, you have Russ drop back, give the ball to Javonte and let him run it in. And no one's mad about you there, because if you get stopped, you get stopped. That's not on you at that point. But then fourth quarter rolls around, and you have an opportunity to go win a football game. There's 55 seconds left on the clock. You have all 3 timeouts. 30 seconds goes by. The entire play clock's run out. You call a timeout with literally 1 second left on the play clock, and there's 23 seconds left in the game. And instead of going for it on 4th and 5 in the Seahawks territory, you decide to trot out Brandon McManus for a 64-yard field goal. And just for those keeping track at home, Brandon McManus was 0-6 on 62 plus yard field goals going into that game. So he had never hit one in the game before. And you trot him out there instead of trusting your $265 million quarterback to get you 5 yards and get you closer. So for that this week, Nathaniel Hackett.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Love it. Cat Bill.
So I got a couple. I'm gonna keep them short though, so we can get through them. A couple serious ones and kind of like a goofy one. The first one is this. If you haven't heard, Scott Frost got fired from Nebraska after losing at home to Georgia Southern to go 1-2 on the season after a couple subpar seasons. Scott Frost is a legend at Nebraska. He was on the one of the the last time they won a national championship actually. Probably got a little bit of a longer leash than he should have because he was a player there. But that's not my gripe this week. It's obviously not my gripe about them firing him as a coach. So they hired Mickey Joseph, who was also used to play at Nebraska, as their interim coach. And I think that what annoyed me about this the most is not even what I'm about to say. It's the fact that every publication that published it also kind of like said this fact as it was kind of like a side note, which was the annoying part to me. Mickey Joseph is now the first African-American coach to ever head coach any program at the University of Nebraska. Not their basketball team, not their track team, not their tennis team, not their baseball team, nothing. They've never had a black head coach at their university. He's the first one. Even ESPN, they put it down as like a little like side note. It was like one of the last sentences in the article. That's a joke. Somebody's got to talk to Nebraska about some diversity issues. Give some people some chances. That's a crazy. Nebraska's been around since the early 1900s. For them to never have a black head coach in any Division I sport is crazy to me. So that's my first one.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
The second one, I'm going at Deshaun's boy, or at Cottrell's boy again, Deshaun. During the game, Deshaun Watson's personal quarterback coach, Quincy Avery, decided to start live tweeting the game, and for lack of a better term, started picking on Baker Mayfield. I'm not going to sit here and stand up for Baker Mayfield or the way he played Sunday. I don't care about that. It's more about reading the room, bud. Nobody wants to hear from you. You're the quarterback coach. You're only relevant because you're the quarterback coach of a guy who just got suspended 11 games for sexually harassing women and being a sexual predator. Don't talk trash, dude. Read the room. Go away. Go work with Deshaun on the side. Get him ready for when he comes back. You're the last person on earth that should be on Twitter live tweeting and talking trash about another quarterback. That's my second one.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Last one hits a little bit close to home for Gene and me a little bit just because his father used to be the head coach here. I'm a little bit appalled that the Kansas City DA's office cut Britt Reed pretty much a sentencing reduction for pleading guilty to something he clearly did. This kid has had numerous drug issues and crimes through his young life. And he's had a drinking problem for a long time. He pretty much altered and ruined a young girl's life after the playoff game last year when he got in an accident, got a DWI, hit 2 cars. Ariel Miller was a 5-year-old at the time, had a traumatic brain injury. She's going to need help to live with herself for the rest of her life. And in exchange for pleading guilty, he went from possibly serving 7 years down to 4. There was no need for it. It was a slam dunk case. He got special treatment because of who his father is. And it's just another example of the shit that needs to be knocked off. He could spend an extra 3 years in jail for pretty much ruining a 5-year-old's life. She's never going to have a chance to live a normal life ever again. Her life is drastically altered because of what he did. So for me this week, my last one, Kansas City.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
I got 2 pretty serious ones, and I don't want to take away from either one, but I'll be quick on them. Brett Favre and Governor Phil Bryant basically stole $5 million from welfare to fund Mississippi welfare to fund a new volleyball stadium at Ole Miss for his daughter. To me, this is absolutely, and there's text messages that came out about it. I really want you to read them. Brett Favre knowingly was asking the governor and dipping into welfare money. Santa came today was one of the text messages that Favre texted back to Ole Miss to when they used the money to buy the volleyball facilities. It's an absolute joke. I never liked Brett Favre as a quarterback. I never liked Brett Favre as a human being, and this makes me hate him even more. Took $5 million so your daughter can play on a really nice volleyball. You have the $5 million. You donate the money. I don't want to hear that bullshit. You're going to take that from welfare families in one of the poorest states in the country.
The poorest.
Absolute joke. Yeah,
to make it even worse.
50th? I didn't know it was 50th.
They are 50th, and to make it even worse, I think it's either 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 kids in all over the state of Mississippi is considered food impoverished. And that's by far the highest rate in the country. To just drive home the scumbagger a little bit more.
So for that, Brett Favre and former Mississippi governor.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Maybe that's like a prerequisite to be a Packers quarterback. You just got to be an asshole.
Love that.
It's possible. Second one is just as serious, if not worse. I don't know if you've heard this yet, but Robert Sarver, the owner of the Phoenix Suns, Phoenix Mercury, was fined $10 million and suspended for 1 year. The comments from Sarver, multiple repeating of the N-word, said as why does Draymond Green get to say it and I can't say it? Completely obnoxious. Sexual, misogynistic remarks, also sexual harassment. They took 17 years of ownership, and ESPN detailed the story in November of 2021, and now the NBA spent 9 months investigating it. Allegations of racism and misogyny. One female ex-employee that was brought up in November of 2021 when the report was first released. Sarver repeated and said, it's just bad press from a former BITCH that worked for me. Racism, sexism, misogyny, sexual harassment. Listen, I can go on a long list of how this guy's an awful human being, but this continues my huge gripe with NFL, NBA, just the ownership groups in these sports. Get more player owners, get more ownership groups, more groups like Magic Johnson created by the LA Dodgers, more groups like Derek Jeter for the Miami Marlins. You need more player athlete groups that can vote a person out and not have majority owners. Adam Silver said it best today. LeBron is very upset. They said the NBA, our organization, got this wrong. And I don't necessarily disagree with LeBron, but what I will say is Adam Silver has no standing to remove somebody as an owner. But I do believe this should be brought to a vote, which 75% of the board would have to vote to remove him as an owner of the Phoenix Suns. The comments, I just don't understand how in 2022 we can continue to put on the back burner racist comments, sexual comments. There was sexual harassment comments. There was sexual predator comments. A lot of things that this man used his power and used it in the worst way. I can't fathom being a Phoenix Suns or Mercury employee over the last 17 years and having to work for this human being. So I think he should be removed right away. And for that, that's my final. You got to be kidding me for the day.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Show 101 went a little bit long. I apologize, but I had a great time. We went over a lot of stuff. And I'm going to start creating more TikToks for our picks. I'm going to screen record them and put them on TikTok. If you don't mind giving us a follow, download us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. You subscribe to us, like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow Wire to Wire Sports Podcast, East Coast Gridiron, and Sports Empire Network. Any final comments, gentlemen?
Rumor has it Uncle Shally is going to be joining Gino on TikTok, so we'll see. More to that.
Nice.
Rumor has it.
Yeah, here for that debacle. I got what we were doing. You got to be kidding me, which I think was probably the best day we've ever done this show. But I got a couple texts about the Trevor Bauer thing. Two things. We've talked about it on the show before. A lot of stuff came out today. I haven't digested all of it yet. We'll probably talk about it next week. I'm not going to comment on all of it until I read it and I look at it. But Trevor Bauer apparently released a lot of stuff today that is very, very, very damning to the people that have said he's done stuff to them. So, like I said, not going to take a side yet. I want to look at it all. But Trevor Bauer apparently has been very active on Twitter today. So it could be an interesting night.
Love it. Any final comments, Cottrell?
Nope. I got nothing.
Well, I just want to thank Dante at East Coast Gridiron for running the ones and twos in the background. I appreciate everything you do, man. Thank you guys for listening to us each week. Thanks for you guys in the comments, and appreciate all the downloads and subscribers on Spotify. Man, our Spotify and our Apple podcast numbers have jumped through the roof the last few weeks. So thank you guys so much for everything that you guys do. And with that, Wire to Wire Sports Podcast, show 101, signing out.